Chapter 318. Zhao Liang had been stuck at the peak of qi refinement for decades, so his foundation was naturally solid. Without much effort, he finished consolidating his cultivation. As soon as the door opened, Wang Daoshu immediately rushed in. Wang Daoyuan retracted his spiritual sense and waited for them to finish before discussing matters with Zhao Liang. Half an hour later, Zhao Liang walked out of the cave. He was about the same age as Wang Daoyuan and was also in his 80s. Before he built his foundation, he already had obvious signs of aging. Now that he had successfully built his foundation, he suddenly became a few decades younger and looked like he was in his 30s. After all, 80s could only be considered young among foundation establishment cultivators. Zhao Liang handed the mystic ice jade essence to Wang Daoyuan and smiled. "Thank you for your help, seventh brother-in-law." Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and said, "We're of the same generation, so there's no need to be so formal. I have something that I need your help with." He took out the flying kite from his storage bag and handed it to Zhao Liang. "This is a flying Dharma artifact that I modified from the crane feather boat. It's called the flying kite. I didn't make much changes to the tool pattern and only added a defensive tool pattern. According to my estimation, this flying kite should be able to reach around 4,000 miles in 2 hours. However, when this flying kite reaches 3,500 miles in 2 hours, it will violently tremble. My refining skills are self-taught, so my foundation isn't solid enough. It can't be compared to Lei Yan, who taught me personally. I can't see where the problem is, so I'll have to trouble you, brother-in-law." Zhao Liang took the flying kite and observed it carefully. "There's no problem with your material handling and tool pattern inscription. The only problem is copying the tool pattern. The tool pattern is compatible with the material and shape of the artifact. If the material and shape are changed, the tool pattern will also have to be adjusted. However, the artifact that you created by copying the tool pattern can still fly 3,000 miles in 2 hours, which is already very impressive. Every mature magical artifact had to go through countless generations of continuous improvement before it reached a relatively perfect state. I don't have the ability to adjust this flying kite to a perfect state. This isn't something that can be done by 1 or 2 people, so I can only do my best. Give me some time, and I'll try my best to fix the flaws that I can see. As for the rest, there's nothing I can do." Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was very happy. He didn't expect the flying kite to be perfect, as long as it could fly faster under stable conditions. Zhou Xian said that he was facing the death calamity. With a reliable flying artifact, he had a higher chance of escaping. "It's fine as long as it's faster than it is now. I don't expect it to be that good. I'll be staying at Jadesong Mountain for a while. If you need any materials, just let me know." Wang Daoyuan smiled. Over at Golden Tiger Mountain, there was already an array disc set up, and it was even connected to the spirit vein. Other than covering a small area, it was not much different from a large array. There was no need to rush to set up an array. It was better to create the spirit gathering bead first. Currently, he needed the spirit gathering bead urgently. The Azure Dragon bead could be used together with the spirit gathering bead. The Azure Dragon Pearl could extract the life force of living creatures to heal and strengthen the body. However, there was a huge drawback. When he was really injured, there was no place to extract the life force. If the extracted life force was not used up, it would be integrated into the body. It would have a weak strengthening effect on the body and could not be preserved. Although his wood elemental spiritual energy carried life force, it was not much. If the Azure Dragon Pearl did not extract life force and was used directly for healing, the effect would be much worse if there was too little life force. Wang Daoyuan had always wanted to create an artifact that could store life force and be used together with the Azure Dragon Pearl. However, due to his limited skill in crafting, he had no idea how to create such an artifact. The spirit gathering bead could store spiritual energy, but he could try using it to store life force. Moreover, his wood elemental spiritual energy could coexist with life force. Even if the spirit gathering bead could not store life force directly, he could first store wood elemental spiritual energy and then integrate the life force into the spiritual energy. He could use the Azure Dragon Pearl to extract more life force from the fierce blood boar and store it in the spirit gathering bead. When he needed to heal, he could use it directly, even if the crafting method of the spirit gathering bead was not perfect, and the resulting spirit gathering bead was prone to all kinds of problems. It was not a big deal to store life force. Among the crafting materials that he had exchanged in Shanbei, there were many second-stage spiritual jades. It was enough to craft dozens of spirit-gathering beads. The difficulty of crafting the spirit-gathering bead was that the pattern was too complicated. A 3-inch jade bead was not enough to inscribe all the patterns. In order to increase the space for inscribing the pattern, the bead was made hollow and divided into 3 layers. The space in the bead was used to store spiritual energy. The innermost layer was inscribed with the spirit storage pattern to bind the spiritual energy in the space. The middle layer was a transformation pattern to convert the escaping spiritual energy into spiritual energy that could be controlled and used. The outermost layer was inscribed with the spirit gathering pattern to gather the escaping spiritual energy and send it into the inner layer of the bead. In order to ensure that the spirit gathering bead did not leak spiritual energy, the entire bead could not be cut and glued together. Only a small hole could be made on the surface of the polished jade bead. The bead could be layered from the inside through the small hole and hollowed out. When inscribing the pattern, a special tool had to be used to inscribe the pattern from the inside through the small hole. When Wang Daoyuan saw the method of inscribing the pattern, he recalled the process of drawing from the inside of the snuff bottle in his previous life. Crafting the spirit gathering bead was similar to that, but the difficulty was not the same. Crafting a spirit gathering bead would take 2 to 3 months with a high failure rate. This was also the main reason why the spirit gathering bead was not suitable for mass production. After inscribing the pattern, a special method had to be used to seal the small hole on the bead. Wang Daoyuan spent 2 years and failed more than 10 times before he finally crafted a spirit gathering bead. He took out 3 fierce blood boars from the spiritual bead and used the Azure Dragon bead to extract their life force. After the Azure Dragon bead was full of life force, he injected it into the spirit gathering bead. The spirit gathering bead could store life force, but life force was not the same as spiritual energy. The spirit storage pattern could not completely bind it. Even if the spirit gathering bead was full of life force, it would dissipate in 3 to 4 days. To prevent the life force from dissipating, he first injected wood spiritual energy into the spirit gathering bead, and then integrated the life force into the spiritual energy. The wood spiritual energy already contained some life force, so it was not difficult to integrate more life force. The life force integrated into the wood spiritual energy did not dissipate. He put the spirit gathering bead full of wood spiritual energy and life force into the spiritual bead. The spirit gathering bead had been in the spiritual bead for a few months, but the wood spiritual energy and life force did not decrease significantly. The Azure Dragon bead had to absorb life force 3 times to fill the spirit gathering bead. Every time the Azure Dragon bead was full, it could cast the healing spell 3 times. The life force stored in one spirit gathering bead was enough to cast the healing spell 9 times. The healing spell of the Azure Dragon bead was not a low-level spell like the rejuvenation spell. It could completely heal the external wounds within a dozen breaths. Although it could not regenerate a severed limb, it could be recovered in a short time by picking up the severed limb, fixing the wound, and casting the healing spell of the Azure Dragon bead. The effect of the healing spell of the Azure Dragon bead was not as good. After all, the amount of life force that could penetrate the internal organs was relatively small. Even so, with this spirit gathering bead, he would not be afraid of getting injured in a fight. It would be best to refine a few more spirit gathering beads. When traveling, he would not often have the opportunity to extract life force. The only drawback was that the extraction of life force was similar to that of the fierce blood boars. Filling the spirit gathering bead once could make 9 fierce blood boars wilt for a few months. Chapter 319. When using the Azure Dragon Pearl to perform a healing technique, all he had to do was to condense the Azure Dragon Pearl and extract the life force from it. The entire process would take less than 10 breaths of time, and it would have a lot of value in actual combat. In the 2 years that he had been refining the spirit-gathering pearl, Zhao Liang had not been idle, and had continuously improved the flying kite. The structure of the flying kite was relatively simple, and the tool pattern was not very complicated. Zhao Liang was now a foundation establishment cultivator, and could process materials much faster than before. He only needed 10 days to refine a flying kite. In these 2 years, he had been constantly flying the flying kite around Jadesong Mountain, testing the flying kite, finding problems, and then modifying it. Thus, one could often see Zhao Liang falling from the sky. He had refined more than 10 flying kites, constantly adjusting the tool pattern. The current tool pattern did not have much in common with the crane feather boat. In addition, he had also tried to add new materials during the refining process, and finally refined a more reliable flying kite. The general appearance of the new flying kite had not changed much. Zhao Liang also felt that the flying kite's shape resembled an eagle, and was more suitable for flying than a boat. He had only made some adjustments to the flying kite's 2 wings and tail, and used the smelting method to add some wind attribute materials. The Wang clan had been doing business with the Green Willow province for several decades, and they had a lot of strange materials, but not a lot of each. Refining the wings did not consume many wind attribute materials, but the increase in speed was very obvious. According to Zhao Liang's estimates, the flying kite's maximum speed could reach 4,400 kilometers in 2 hours. However, the flying kite's problem of violently trembling when flying at high speed had not been completely resolved. The current flying kite could only reach a little more than 4,500 kilometers in 2 hours. After reaching 4,100 kilometers, it would continue to tremble violently. The consumption of spiritual energy had also been improved. The standard speed was about 3,600 kilometers, and the consumption of spiritual energy was less than half of that of sword kinesis flight. Wang Daoyuan was already very satisfied with this speed. The maximum speed of an early Zifu realm cultivator was only 3,600 kilometers in 2 hours. As long as one was not a sword cultivator, it would be harder and harder to increase the speed of sword kinesis flight. A middle Zifu realm cultivator's maximum speed was 4,500 kilometers in 2 hours. The flying kite's current speed was comparable to that of a middle Zifu disciple. Although the flying kite had only one function, it could be used by most foundation establishment cultivators. Its structure was simple, and its price was only 6,000 to 7,000 spirit stones. It could be considered a good item at a good price. Just as Wang Daoyuan was about to fly out and test the speed of the new flying kite, the patriarch sent a message saying that someone from the underworld sect was looking for him, asking him to hurry back. He didn't have the time to experience the speed of the flying kite. On the way back to the mountain, he didn't dare to drive the flying kite. After all, this thing still needed to be kept a secret. Once the Netherworld sect found out that he had such a good item, they would force him to hand over the refinement method. Then, the speed advantage he had over cultivators of the same level, and even early-stage Zifu realm cultivators, would be completely gone. After arriving at the Jade Spring Peak, he learned that someone from the Netherworld sect had come to look for Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan was a little scared. Could it be that the Underworld sect's Golden Core elders had found out about his deletion of the Golden Rock Wrestling Dragon art, and came to denounce him? He entered the hall, and found that the person was someone he knew. It was Luo Jiu's descendant, Luo Hongming, and his 12th uncle Wang Shui was talking to him. Seeing that Wang Daoyuan had returned, Luo Hongming smiled and said, "Daoyu is finally back. Granduncle ordered me to come and invite Daoyu to the mountain gate." Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "Young Master Luo, may I ask why the sect master has ordered me to go to the mountain gate, so that I can make some preparations?" Luo Hongming smiled and said, "This matter isn't considered a secret. There are no outsiders here, so there's no harm in talking about it. The Golden Core elders have decided to refine their own flying battleships. They've invited all the third-rank craftsmen and formation masters from the affiliated forces to go to the mountain gate of the Underworld sect to help. The flying battleships of the underworld sect in the past were all bought from the Divine Weapon Pavilion. According to the agreement between the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the local forces, there's a limit to the number of flying battleships that each force can buy. Now that the sect needs more flying battleships, and the Divine Weapon Pavilion can't sell them, the Golden Core Elders want the sect to build their own. Wang Daoyuan thought for a while and said, "Since the elders are inviting third-rank craftsmen, how can I, a second-rank upper-rank craftsman, dare to accept? As far as I know, flying battleships are all third-rank magic tools. I'm just a second-rank craftsman, so I can't help." Luo Hongming smiled and said, "Daoyu is too modest. Who doesn't know that Daoyu is proficient in alchemy, craftsman and talisman arrays?" Of the flying battleships of the Wang family, except for one that's used to repair broken magic tools, the rest were all refined by you. Lei Yan's disciple who married into the Wang family was only a second-ranked middle-rank craftsman. He could only be Daoyu's assistant. The core of these flying battleships could be said to be refined by Daoyu. Although there are many third-rank craftsmen and array masters invited by the sect, they don't have experience in refining flying battleships. Our sect's cultivators only have experience in repairing flying battleships and very little experience in refining flying battleships. That's why we need Daoyu, an expert who has refined many flying battleships. I saw that the outer shell of the Wang family's flying battleships are inscribed with many tool patterns that can launch magic attacks. It's more like a flying battleship. Moreover, helping to refine flying battleships is also very beneficial to Daoyu. As far as I know, Daoyu's attainments in craftsmen and arrays have been stuck at second rank upper rank for many years, right? He must be lacking materials and guidance from third-rank craftsmen and array masters. Needless to say, there are dozens of third-rank craftsmen and array masters to guide him on this trip to the Netherworld sect. Presumably, it won't be long before Daoyu's attainments in craftsmen and arrays break through to third-rank lower rank. After saying that, Luo Hongming looked at Wang Daoyuan meaningfully. If he didn't agree, the Netherworld sect would say that the Wang family's flying battleship was a flying battleship. At that time, a casual punishment would be enough to hurt the Wang family's bones. Wang Daoyuan also knew that he couldn't refuse. If he went, he could improve his craftsmen and arrays, so there was no harm in going. No matter what, the Netherworld sect wouldn't detain him. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "In that case, I'm willing to go to the sect and work for it." Hearing this, Luo Hongming laughed heartily. The Wang family is indeed loyal to the sect. I'll definitely report it to the sect master. I still have to invite other craftsmen and array masters, so I'll take my leave first. Daoyu, please come to the Clear Glass Market in 3 days. We'll set off together and go to the sect. Wang Daoyuan naturally agreed and sent Luo Hongming out of the mountain. After returning to the hall, Wang Daoyuan asked Wang Shui, "12th uncle, during my absence, did the situation in Zhao country change? The Netherworld sect has a lot of Tier 3 craftsmen and array masters, but it's not a problem to gather 20 or 30 of them. To build flying battleships, they don't need to recruit a large number of people from the affiliated families. The Netherworld sect gathered so many craftsmen and array masters, including a Tier 2 upper grade one like me, to build a large number of flying battleships in a short time. If there's no war, there's no need to be in such a hurry." Wang Shui thought for a long time and couldn't think of a reason. He shook his head and said, "These years, the 3 major sects haven't had any conflicts. They even built a new market at the intersection of the 3 sections. They're so harmonious that they're just short of wearing a pair of pants. I haven't heard of any major issues. If they don't fight the other 2 major sects, and the Netherworld sect doesn't have borders with other countries, the Netherworld sect won't dare to make a big move in the sky-chopping mountain range. So to build so many flying battleships, is the Netherworld sect going to attack the demon race in the north of the mountain? Other than that, I really can't think of anyone else the Netherworld sect can attack." Chapter 320. Wang Daoyuan couldn't figure it out either. He smiled. "If I can't figure it out, I won't think about it. I'll just pretend to be a grandson. Even if they attack someone, I'm a talent who can forge flying boats. I won't be thrown to the front as cannon fodder, right? I'll make use of these 3 days to prepare some more things. Wang Daoyuan left the hall and returned to his cave abode. He didn't have many things to prepare. He only needed to take out the things he usually used from the space of the spirit pearl and put them into his storage bag. He didn't want to expose himself if he took them out from the space of the spirit pearl when he needed them. Zifu realm cultivators wouldn't be able to see through him, taking things out from the space of the spirit pearl. But going to the Netherworld Sex Mountain Gate meant that he was moving under the eyes of a golden core cultivator. He wasn't sure if he would be discovered. There was no need to risk his life to test a golden core cultivator. It was better to be honest. Apart from that, he also had to use his cultivation technique to change the attribute of his spirit power, turning it into ordinary spirit power. It was inevitable to use spirit power when forging flying boats. It was too easy to be exposed. After preparing, he headed to the clear glass market and gathered at the Netherworld Sex encampment. At the entrance of the encampment, he saw the patriarch of the Yang family, Yang Ziyuan, and a foundation establishment elder of the Liang family. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands towards Yang Ziyuan. "Greetings, senior." Yang Ziyuan smiled. "Oh, it's Daoyuan. You're already at the 8th level of foundation establishment. The first time I saw you was in Gold Goose City. At that time, you were only at the 7th level of Qi refinement. I didn't expect that in just a few decades, your cultivation would catch up to mine. You're also proficient in pill, weapon and talisman arrays. To be invited by the sect, it seems that you're also at the 3rd level of formation and weapon forging. The younger generation will surpass us in time." Wang Daoyuan explained. "I've had some fortuitous encounters these years, and my cultivation has improved a little. As for weapon forging and formation, I'm only at the 2nd level of high grade. I'm still far from senior's level. It's only because I forged the core of a flying boat alone that I was invited." "That's not bad. You're proficient in pill, weapon and talisman arrays, and your cultivation hasn't fallen behind." Yang Ziyuan sighed. "The Yang clans Yulin and Yuhu, who are similar in age to you, are only at the 5th level of the foundation establishment realm. Yulin's weapon refinement is only at the middle grade of the 2nd level. He's far inferior to you." After the two chatted for a bit, Yang Yong accompanied an old man out. This old man's spiritual energy ripples were even stronger than Yang Yong's. "He should be a late-stage Zifu disciple." The old man looked at the crowd and laughed. "This northern part of Qingli Prefecture is really full of talents. There are actually 7 third-rank armament masters and array masters. This matter is urgent, and I don't have time to explain it to you in detail. Follow me to the mountain gate. When you get there, someone will tell you what to do." After saying that, he waved his hand, and a flying ship that was over 30 meters long appeared in front of everyone. The spiritual energy fluctuations emitted from this flying boat far exceeded those that Wang Daoyuan had refined. It should be a rank 3 magic tool. Everyone boarded the flying boat, and the old man entered the cabin to control the flying boat. After the flying boat took off, its speed soared rapidly. After 20 breaths, the speed stabilized. Wang Daoyuan estimated that the current speed should be around 4,500 to 600 kilometers in 2 hours. This speed was enough to crush the majority of Zifu disciple. However, the strength of the materials used for this flying boat was not good enough. It should not be a flying warship. The so-called warship was a flying boat that could directly participate in battle. The warship was equipped with all kinds of offensive magic tools, and it was also inscribed with offensive formation patterns. It was usually used to make up for the lack of high-end combat power. A rank 4 flying warship could even go head-to-head with a golden core cultivator. Therefore, the materials used for the flying warship were all excellent. They did not consider things like the consumption of spiritual energy. They only needed to be able to fight, and also be able to catch up with the enemy. However, only the Divine Weapon Pavilion could build a rank 4 flying warship. This was also an important reason why the Divine Weapon Pavilion was able to maintain its position as one of the top forces in Beiyuan. The flying boat under their feet was indeed fast, but the materials used were not strong enough. It also did not have any offensive magic tools. It should be a transport boat used to transport resources and cultivators. The flying boat's speed was very fast. After 16 hours, they arrived at the mountain gate of the Netherworld sect. The flying boat slowly landed in front of the mountain gate. Everyone jumped off the boat. 20 meters north of here was the mountain gate of the Netherworld sect. This was the Guanshan County of the past. It was surrounded by mountain ranges. In the middle was a river valley formed by erosion. The Netherworld sect was located in this valley. The mountain gate was built at the bottom of the valley. There was nothing special about it. It was just a white stone arch that was 100 meters tall and 30 meters wide. In the middle of the arch were the words Netherworld sect. On both sides of the arch were 10 Middle Foundation establishment cultivators. The group of people under the lead of the Zifu disciple entered the mountain gate. When the disciples guarding the gate saw that the Zifu disciple was leading the group, they did not question them. After entering the mountain gate, there was a 10-kilometer-long stone staircase. At the end of the staircase was a palace, which was the highest point of the Netherworld sect. The Zifu disciple said to the group, "At the top of this staircase is the conference hall. That is where the sect master and the elders discuss matters. Cultivators below the Zifu disciple level are not allowed to fly on the staircase between the mountain gate and the conference hall, unless there is an urgent matter to report. If you violate this taboo, you will be punished by the sect. Follow me to the tool forging hall." After saying this, he flew on his sword towards a mountain peak in the southwest direction of the conference hall. The group followed closely behind. This mountain peak was extremely large, but the flat area at the top was somewhat narrow. At the top of the mountain, there was a small palace-like building. On both sides of the palace were 2 rows of tool forging workshops. The group landed on the mountain peak. A red-robed cultivator walked out of the palace and smiled. "You finally arrived. We were waiting for you to come help us." The Zifu disciple led the group in saluting. "Greetings, Hall Master." The person in front of them was the Hall Master of the Tool Forging Hall. He waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about these unnecessary formalities. The sect master has ordered me to create 20 low-grade Grade 3 warships within half a year. I've been worried to death. There's no need for formalities. Hurry up and help out. If there's anything you need, just tell me. Inchang, I'll leave these people to you. If there's anything you need, you'll be responsible for it. I still have to go forge the core of the warships. I'll leave these trivial matters to you." The old man cupped his hands and said, "Yes, Hall Master." Then, he threw a jade talisman to Wang Daoyuan and the others, saying, "Those who have experience in forging flying ships, go to the first tool forging workshop in the east to help. Those who don't have experience, go to the workshop in the west to learn. If there's anything you need, use the jade talisman to contact me." Everyone cupped their hands and said yes. Wang Daoyuan had experience in forging flying ships, so he entered the first tool forging workshop in the east. The workshop was built with stone materials. The area was very small, and it didn't look like it could accommodate many people. There was no set of tools in the workshop. There was only a huge table. Behind the table was a Peak Foundation establishment cultivator. He was lying on the table and drawing something. Seeing Wang Daoyuan come in, he asked, "Daoyu has forged flying ships before? How are your skills in forging and formations?" Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "I forged a few flying ships. My forging skills and formations are all second-rank high-grade." Hearing this, the Peak Foundation establishment cultivator said in surprise, "Then I've picked up a treasure. So, you know all the processes of forging flying ships?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "I do know, but my forging skills and formations are only second-rank high-grade. I really can't help in forging third-rank flying ships." The Peak Foundation establishment cultivator smiled and said, "You can slowly improve your skills. You just need to know the trade. What I lack the most is people who know the trade. To be honest, I've only forged second-rank flying ships before. However, I only know how to forge artifacts and cooperate with others. In terms of experience, I'm not as good as you, so I was forced to manage a tool forging workshop here. Use your divine sense to suppress me. Let me see how your divine sense cultivation is." Wang Daoyuan's divine sense erupted, and suppressed the peak foundation establishment cultivator. Under the effect of his powerful divine sense, the paper on the table floated up. The peak foundation establishment cultivator staggered and almost fell to the ground. Chapter 321. The peak foundation establishment cultivator got up to avoid Wang Daoyuan's divine sense suppression and shouted, "Stop, stop. Daoyu's divine sense cultivation is much higher than mine. Inscribing a mid-grade level 3 artifact pattern is not a problem for him. How can he only be a high-grade level 2 artifact master?" Wang Daoyuan retracted his divine sense and smiled. Cultivators of our families are not like Daoyu, who has a level 3 artifact master to guide him. My artifact forging and formation skills are already the highest in the family, and I don't have any elders to guide me. Plus, I'm busy raising my cultivation, so my progress in artifact forging and formation skills is slower. The peak foundation establishment cultivator smiled. I'm also from a family, and it's an old family. My life hasn't been good for so many years. It's only because I successfully built my foundation and became a level 3 artifact master that my family's life got better. My name is Su Tingxian. May I ask what Daoyu's name is? Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. Wang Daoyuan of Jade Spring Peak of Qingli County greets Daoyu Su. Su Tingxian had a shocked expression and only recovered after a long time. He asked, "You're the one who defeated 5 people in the middle stage foundation establishment duel and heavily injured the number 1 genius of Cruel Sun Palace. Wang Daoyuan? Speaking of which, our families are old friends. My family is in the south of Qingli County. When spiritual master Jade Spring was still alive, my family had a marriage alliance with the Wang family. I still have the blood of the Wang family flowing in my body. Since I met the descendant of spiritual master Jade Spring here, I have to help him. Follow me. I'll personally teach you how to inscribe a level 3 artifact pattern. With Daoyu's divine sense cultivation and talent, it won't take long for him to become a level 3 artifact master." The Wang family's rise in recent years was very obvious. They had produced a Zifu realm cultivator who was only 100 years old and more than 10 foundation establishment cultivators. This strength was second to none in the entire Qingli County. Su Tingshuan's family was also in Qingli County, and it was inevitable that he would have to deal with the Wang family in the future. If he were to build a good relationship with him now, there would be many benefits in the future. Su Tingxian took out a token and activated it with his spirit power. A few stone slabs on the ground moved away, revealing a 10 square feet hole with stairs below. As soon as the hole opened, a wave of heat gushed out. No wonder this crafting workshop was so small and didn't have any tools for crafting. It turned out that the real crafting room was hidden underground. The mountain where the refining hall was located had a small top and a large body. It was very suitable for building underground buildings. Su Tingxian led Wang Daoyuan underground. The further down they went, the hotter it became. The two of them walked down for more than 1,000 feet and found many places where refining materials were stored. They continued to descend, reaching a depth of over 500 feet, which was the bottom of the underground cavern. At the bottom was a circular space with a diameter of about 300 meters. There was a circular corridor close to the rock wall. On the rock wall outside the corridor, there were refining rooms. Every crafting room had a fire eye. The fire in these fire eyes was the earth fire that was drawn out from the ground using an array. The two of them came to the entrance of the corridor. There was a table here with a sloppy cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment sitting at the table. There was also a wine gourd on the table. This sloppy cultivator was the manager of the crafting room. When he saw Su Tingxian coming, he asked, "Old Su, you are a busy man. Why didn't you study the patterns on the flying warship? Why did you come to my place?" Su Tingxian smiled and said, "You old drunkard don't know shit. I picked up a treasure. This Wang Daoyu is proficient in crafting and array formations. He has personally refined several flying ships. It's just because he didn't have anyone to guide him, so he's only at the upper grade of the 2nd rank. His spiritual sense cultivation is stronger than mine. With my guidance, he will soon reach the lower grade of the 3rd rank. If his array formation attainments can break through to the 3rd rank, he will be able to refine the core of an array formation. At that time, wouldn't it be easy for our crafting workshop to complete the task? Quickly open a crafting room for me. I will personally teach him how to craft. The old drunkard threw a red token to Su Tingxian. He opened the wine gourd and took a sip. He asked, "Is this kid so powerful?" Su Tingxian took the token. Before he could speak, Dao Yu sniffed hard and said, 70 years of drunken dragon wine. What a pity. If this drunken dragon wine could be stored for 100 years, it would be a third-rank spirit wine. I don't know if Dao Yu still has live drunken dragon grass or seeds. I can use wine to exchange. The old drunkard suddenly became spirited and said, "This Dao Yu is so young. I didn't expect you to be a wine cultivator. This is indeed 70 years of drunken dragon wine. I do have some drunken dragon grass seeds. If you can help our East First crafting workshop refine the flying ship first, we will get the sect master's reward. It's just drunken dragon grass seeds, so it's fine to give them to you." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "Since Dao Yu said so, then I will do my best." After saying that, he followed Su Tingxian into the earth-fire room. The tools in the earth-fire room were all available, so he didn't need to prepare anything. Su Tingxian took out 2 large pieces of metal from his storage bag and threw one to Wang Daoyuan. He said solemnly, "This is the material used to refine a low-grade third-rank flying warship's side plate. Every single part of the flying warship has to be at the level of a low-grade third-rank magic artifact. This way, it can guarantee that it won't be at a disadvantage in a head-on clash with the Zifu realm cultivator. I will demonstrate it to you once. Watch carefully." After saying that, Su Tingxian placed a piece of metal into the fire eye and heated it up with earth fire. After the piece of metal was red hot, he placed it on the anvil and began to forge it with a hammer. 2 hours later, the metal was forged into a 2 feet square and half an inch thick metal plate. After that, he took out a chisel knife and began to inscribe the pattern on the metal plate. He used an entire day's time to finish inscribing the entire side plate. He said with a smile, "At this point, a single side plate is enough. You just need to heat it up and quench it. If you want to refine the core of the flying warship, you need to inlay metal wires in the pattern to increase the spirit energy transmission. This is the difference between a third-rank flying warship and a second-rank flying warship. I will teach you the method of inlaying metal wires later. For now, you need to learn the most basic method. Your spiritual sense is strong enough, so this won't be a problem for you. You can try it yourself." Wang Daoyuan picked up another piece of metal and imitated Su Tingxuan's method of heating it up and forging it before inscribing the pattern. Heating and forging weren't meticulous work, so it didn't matter if there were some small problems. However, there couldn't be any mistakes when inscribing the pattern later. Wang Daoyuan didn't have any experience in inscribing a third-rank pattern, so he failed twice during the process. Under Su Tingxuan's guidance, he succeeded in refining a side plate on the 3rd try. Su Tingxian said with a smile, "If you can succeed once out of 3 times, you can be considered a low-grade third-rank tool refiner. Let me show you the quenching technique again. It's not that difficult. You just need to watch it once." Then Su Tingxian explained to him in detail how to heat it up and how to quench it. The difficulty of this was very low. After Wang Daoyuan looked at it once, he was able to successfully craft the flying warship's side plank. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Dao Yu Su, for your guidance. In these few days, I've improved more than in the past 10 years. Su Tingxian waved his hand and said, "Dao Yu, you don't have to be so polite. Later on, when you set up the array on the magic tool and inscribe the array pattern, just give me some pointers. However, I don't have your talent. When I learned how to refine a third-rank magic tool, I failed more than 10 times before I succeeded. The Purple Mansion Elder, who taught me how to refine magic tools, was furious. Don't despise me." Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "What are you talking about? We can train each other. I won't despise Dao Yu." Chapter 322. Su Tingxian also taught Wang Daoyuan how to forge the deck, ribs, and other parts of the ship. He had already adapted to inscribing a third-order tool pattern. There was not much difference in forging, quenching, and other processes. Apart from the core and the keel, He mastered all the other parts in a short time. Su Tingxian smiled and said, I finally know why the senior who taught me didn't like me, and liked a few talented senior brothers. It's so comfortable to teach smart people. They can learn it once and understand it with just a little bit. When your refining level is enough, you can learn array formations from Old Drunkard, and strive to become a third-order low-grade array master as soon as possible. Now our workshop can't refine the keel and core yet. Those experts who can are led by the hall master to refine them in the main hall. When they are done, they will distribute them to each workshop. If your array formation level reaches third-order low-grade, you will be able to refine the keel and core yourself. Our progress will be much faster. The sect master and palace master had given the order that the first crafting workshop to complete 2 flying warships would be rewarded handsomely by the entire crafting workshop. Although they didn't say what the reward was, the sect master has always been generous to disciples who are proficient in the various arts of cultivation. It's not impossible for him to bestow the yin-yang purple jade. I don't have the ability to refine it in advance, but whether I can take the lead or not will depend on you. After saying that, he brought Wang Daoyuan out of the workshop and to the entrance of the corridor. Old Drunkard was dozing off when Su Tingxian kicked him and said, Stop drinking. This little brother is already a third-order low-grade artificer. You teach him array formations. His talent is much higher than yours. Back then, when you came to me to learn refining, I taught you for a few years, and you barely reached second order. This little brother only took a few days to advance from second order to third order. Old Drunkard had just opened his eyes when he heard Su Tingxian exposing his shortcomings. He scolded, Old Ghost Su, you're bullshitting. Don't you know what you're capable of? When you learned array formations from me back then, you took 5 years to advance from first order high grade to second order low grade. And you still have the face to talk about me. Su Tingxian smiled awkwardly and said, Let's not bicker and let Brother Wang see a joke. He's also a disciple of an old family, and is proficient in alchemy, smithing, and talisman arrays. He's not someone we can compare to. Don't hide anything. Our hope lies with Brother Wang. The Old Drunkard was startled. Proficient in all 4 Daos, and a descendant of an old family. He's Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, I am indeed Wang Daoyuan. Am I very famous in the underworld sect? The Old Drunkard stood up and said, Isn't that obvious? Fighting against the elite disciples of the Savage Sun Pillar, winning 5 times in a row, and even heavily injuring Lei Wudao in the end. We all know that kid Lei Wudao. Back then, his battle prowess was comparable to an 8th-level Foundation establishment cultivator. Now he's probably even stronger than me and Old Ghost Su. Your cultivation is 1 level lower than his, but you can still injure him. Who among the disciples of the Netherworld sect doesn't know that you are invincible in the same level? Oh right, I heard that you can hold your liquor quite well. During the duel between the 2 sects, did you drink a jug of wine in one go? Let's have a drink sometime. Wang Daoyuan took out 2 jars of spirit peach dew that had been stored in the cellar for 20 years, and handed them to the Old Drunkard. If she wanted to learn formations from him, she should at least show some appreciation. There were quite a few that had been stored in the cellar for several hundred years in his space, but taking out several hundred years of wine was hard to explain. The Old Drunkard took the wine jug, opened it, and tasted a mouthful, saying, This is the Wang family's spirit peach dew, right? It's indeed a good wine. Although it's a little lacking in strength, the effect of recovering spiritual energy is strong enough. The taste doesn't lose to my drunken dragon wine. Finished talking, he took out a refined formation plate and a blank formation plate, saying, You are a high-grade Tier 2 formation master. I don't need to teach you the basics. Just imitate and inscribe formation patterns on this formation plate. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. These 2 formation plates were both refined with metal materials. It didn't matter if there was a problem with inscribing the artifact patterns. He could just refine it again. Su Tingxian also took out a blank formation plate and inscribed formation patterns on the side. The Old Drunkard said mockingly, Old Ghost Su, don't lose face. After learning from me for several decades, you're still a low-grade Tier 2 formation master. When inscribing formation patterns, always inscribing the artifact patterns. Inscribing formation patterns and artifact patterns together. Can that work? You're just wasting materials by learning array formations. Su Tingxian ignored him and focused on inscribing the formation patterns. There weren't many formation patterns on this formation plate. Wang Daoyuan used 5 to 6 days and only failed once to complete the inscription. Although there were many small mistakes along the way, they were all made up under the old drunkard's guidance. The old drunkard laughed. Old ghost Su, do you see that? Don't waste time. You're not cut out to learn formations. Why don't you just focus on refining? In the following 2 months, the old drunkard taught all the formations needed to be used on the flying warship. Wang Daoyuan also learned them all. Of course, this was refined on ordinary materials. The flying warship's core and keel had to be inscribed with many formation and artifact patterns, densely covering the entire material. The biggest problem was to ensure that the artifact patterns and formation patterns didn't interfere with each other. Therefore, Wang Daoyuan was still far from actually refining a flying warship. Moreover, refining a flying warship wasn't as simple as refining a flying boat. Every material had to be refined into a low-grade Tier 3 magic artifact. If he were to do it himself, he might not be able to complete it in 10 years. This was under the condition that he had ready-made materials and could save the process of purifying the materials. Refining a flying warship required many artificers. Just in the East First Crafting Workshop alone, there were 7 or 8 Tier 3 artificers, and more than 10 Tier 2 artificers as assistants. These were only the people who refined the non-core structure of the flying warship. If he couldn't refine it in large quantities, it would be better to nurture a few Zifu realm cultivators than to raise so many artificers. However, if he were to refine a low-grade Tier 3 flying warship on a large scale, he would need to consume countless Tier 3 materials. Ordinary factions wouldn't be able to afford such a price. Wang Daoyuan originally wanted to refine a Tier 3 flying warship for fun, but now it seemed impossible. He couldn't even gather the materials. This was also the reason why the underworld sect didn't worry about the artificers and formation masters of the affiliated clans. Even if they gave out the entire refining method, no clan would be able to refine it. It didn't matter if they sold it to other factions. Any faction that had the ability to refine a flying warship didn't lack the refining method. Seeing that his artificer and formation skills were up to standard, Su Tingxian and Old Drunkard brought him to an extremely spacious refining workshop. There was a metal pillar that was more than 30 meters long and 1 meter in diameter. There were many holes on it. Su Tingxian smiled and said, "Brother Wang, this is the embryonic form of the dragon bone. The two of us aren't proficient in both Daos, and our cooperation isn't that good either. We don't dare to act rashly." After saying that, he handed over a piece of beast skin and said, "This is the refining method of the dragon bone. The two of us are proficient in only one Dao, but this dragon bone is a mixture of artifact and formation patterns. It's hard for us to even look at it. Now that we have you, an expert proficient in both artifact and formation, we can refine the dragon bone. Since you're proficient in both Daos, you know how to prevent the artifact and formation patterns from interfering with each other. You'll take command, Old Drunkard, and I will do it. If there's anything wrong, you'll take action." Wang Daoyuan spent over 10 days to understand the formation and artifact patterns on the dragon bone. He then began to instruct the other two to engrave the formation and artifact patterns on the dragon bone. In order to prevent the formation and artifact patterns from interfering with each other, the engraving position couldn't be wrong at all. After the engraving was completed, they had to embed materials that would facilitate the passage of spiritual power into the artifact and formation patterns. After the embedding, they had to use the powder of the materials used to refine the dragon bone. After smelting, they had to seal the artifact and formation patterns. The entire dragon bone looked like a single entity. There were no traces of artifact and formation patterns on the outside. This way, they could prevent the artifact and formation patterns from interfering with each other to the greatest extent. Moreover, they could protect the artifact and formation patterns and prolong their lifespan. The three of them used a month's time to complete the refinement of one dragon bone. Chapter 323. After the dragon bone was refined, Su Tingxian immediately ran into the main hall and reported to the artifact forging hall master. Not long after, he brought a Zifu realm cultivator to the forging room, where the dragon bone was being refined. This Zifu realm cultivator was Yin Chang, who had brought Wang Daoyuan here before. After entering the forging room, he placed one hand on the dragon bone. His hand flashed with intense spirit energy, and the dragon bone instantly became 5 inches long. Then he made the dragon bone 2 feet long. Holding the dragon bone with both hands, he bent it forcefully, but the dragon bone did not move at all. Yin Chang smiled and said, "This dragon bone is qualified. I'll take it to the artifact forging hall master." Not long after, Yin Chang came to the East First Forging Workshop again with 5 people behind him. Seeing Wang Daoyuan and the other 2, he smiled and said, "Your dragon bone was refined very well. The artifact forging hall master is very satisfied. In the future, your East First Forging Workshop can also refine dragon bones and flying warship cores. In addition, you can't give up on refining ribs, decks, and other parts. The artifact forging hall master is worried that you don't have enough people. So he gave you 3 third-rank low-grade artificers and 2 third-rank low-grade formation masters. These 5 people also participated in the refining of the flying warship cores and can be of great help. Also, this dragon bone you refined is also for you to use. There are less than 3 months left before the half-year deadline set by the sect master. It's a bit tight to build 20 flying warships. In the remaining time, try your best to refine 1 more flying warship. If you can complete the task, the artifact forging hall master will reward you." After saying that, he handed a 3-foot-long dragon bone and a storage pouch to Su Tingxian, turned and walked out of the workshop. Su Tingxian opened the storage pouch and saw that there was a beast skin book inside. The book recorded the refining method of each part of the 3rd-rank flying warship. This beast skin book had a total of 16 pages, 7 of which recorded the refining method of the flying warship core. Wang Daoyuan spent more than 10 days to understand the refining method of the dragon bone. Now that there were less than 3 months left, it was not enough to use all of the time to understand the refining method. Obviously, it was impossible for him to see through it before refining it. He could only understand a part of it by himself and get others to help him refine the rest. The entire core of the battleship was made up of dozens of components. Before they could understand the tool patterns and formation patterns, they had to forge the prototypes of the components first. Wang Daoyuan then seized the time to study the tool patterns and formation patterns. Every time he thoroughly understood the refining method of a component, he would instruct everyone to inscribe tool patterns and array patterns on the components. In order to save time, Wang Daoyuan was completely multitasking. While commanding everyone, he continued to think about the refining method. Even so, there was still not enough time. A month later, the temple master sent over a dragon bone and a set of completed battleship cores. Previously, when Wang Daoyuan and the others were refining the dragon bones, a set had already been sent over. However, that set had already been assembled by other weapon refiners and could not be disassembled, so it could not be used as a reference. Now that another set had been delivered to him, it would be much easier for him to comprehend it. Even if the tool patterns and formation patterns were hidden, this little trick could not be hidden from the eyes of the weapon refiners and array masters. In 5 or 6 days, they could thoroughly understand the contents of a page of beast skin book. When others were inscribing array patterns and tool patterns, they had a reference and were much faster. After 2.5 months, Wang Daoyuan and the others successfully refined a set of warship cores. In the remaining 10 or so days, all the components of the 2 warships were completed. They only needed to assemble the components into 2 flying warships. This was not an easy task, but with more than a dozen third-tier lower-grade weapon refiners and array masters, and more than a dozen second-tier weapon refiners, the assembly work was not difficult for them. When half a year was up, the East First Weapon Workshop had refined a total of 3 flying warships, one of which was completely refined by the workshop. The other two were the dragon bones and cores sent by the temple master. They refined the outer shell and assembled it. There were a total of 10 weapon workshops in the weapon refining hall. To refine 20 flying warships in half a year, one workshop should be able to refine 2. The East First Weapon Workshop had refined 3 flying warships, which had exceeded the quota. So the reward was not a problem. The deadline was up, and the sect master would soon bring a few elders to the weapon workshop to check on the completion of the flying warships. The temple master had not finished refining the core of the 20th warship. Yinchang hurriedly ran to the East First Weapon Workshop and saw Wang Daoyuan and the others chatting and laughing. He asked, "How is the set of warship cores that you refined by yourselves?" Su Tingxian took Yinchang to see the 3 weapon workshops. In each workshop, there was a completed warship, and the second-tier weapon refiners were testing the functions of the warships. Seeing this, Yinchang breathed a sigh of relief and said, "So close, it's finally completed. If you did not refine this warship, our weapon refining hall's mission would have failed. Fortunately, you completed the mission above expectations, so you will be rewarded." With that, he left the weapon workshop and went to the main hall to report the situation to the hall master. Not long after, Luo Jiuyo brought a few Purple Mansion elders to the weapon refining hall. The weapon refining hall master led a few Purple Mansion stewards to welcome them outside the hall. After saluting, Luo Jiuyo asked, "Hall Master Gu, have the 20 flying warships been refined?" Hall Master Gu saluted and said, "Sect Master, the 20 flying warships have been refined, but the weapon workshops are still testing them. Sect Master and elders, please take a rest in the hall. When the testing is over, I will order people to bring the warships to the main hall." Luo Jiuyo waved his hand and said, "No need to be so troublesome. I will personally see how they are refining." Hall Master Gu could not refuse, so he led Luo Jiuyo and the others to the East First Weapon Workshop. At this time, the 3 flying warships had been tested, and there were no problems. Wang Daoyuan and the others were preparing to put away the flying warships and send them to the main hall. Luo Jiuyo, accompanied by Hall Master Gu, brought a group of people here. Wang Daoyuan and the others immediately saluted and said, "Greetings, Sect Master, Hall Master and elders." Luo Jiuyo smiled and said, "No need to be so polite. I am also here to see how the flying warships are refined." Hall Master Gu asked, "Steward Su, where are the 3 flying warships on your side? Take them out for the sect master and elders to inspect." Su Tingxian ordered a few second-stage weapon refiners to bring the flying warships out of the weapon workshop. Under the control of a few cultivators, the 3 flying warships floated in front of everyone. Su Tingxian cupped his hands and said, "Sect Master, Hall Master, elders, the speed of these flying warships has not been tested, but the rest have been tested, and no problems have been found." Then, under Su Tingxuan's command, the cultivators demonstrated the basic functions of the flying warships such as floating, moving, ascending and descending, as well as enlarging and shrinking. In order to show his face, Hall Master Gu even ordered a few cultivators to control the flying warships to attack him. There was no requirement to install offensive magic artifacts on the flying warships, and they could only use the tool patterns inscribed on the flying warships to unleash magical attacks. Several third-stage magical techniques were cast, and their power was not bad. Of course, they were unable to injure Hall Master Gu, who was at the peak of the Zifu stage. A Zifu elder said, "The attack power is not weak, but the attack methods are too simple." Su Tingxian said, "Reporting to elder, when we were assigned the task of refining, there was no requirement to install offensive magic artifacts on the warships. Thus, there are only a few offensive tool patterns on the warships. If we install offensive magic artifacts, there will naturally be more offensive methods." This Zifu elder was somewhat puzzled and asked, "The main offensive method of the flying warships is magic artifacts. Why are there no offensive magic artifacts installed?" Chapter 324. This was also a question that Wang Daoyuan really wanted to ask. The Netherworld sect didn't encounter any major issues, but they suddenly gathered all the artificers and array masters in their affiliated forces to refine 20 flying warships. If he was in a hurry to refine a flying warship, then he would definitely want to go to war. But he didn't install any offensive artifacts. Without any offensive artifacts, the flying warship could only display 30% of its combat power. It did not look like it was going to attack other forces. Luo Juyo smiled and said, "This isn't a secret. I reckon it will soon spread throughout the entire Zhao state. We're not refining these flying warships for our own use, but to sell them to the myriad spirit sect." The south of the state of Zhao bordered the state of Song. 5 years ago, the state of Song started to attack the Wuqing Pass on the border of the state of Zhao. Over the years, it was not uncommon for the neighboring countries to attack the borders of the Zhao kingdom. The Cruel Sun Palace and the Wei kingdom had been fighting at the Cold River Pass for more than 100 years. The Cold River Pass was located in a strategic location. The Wei nation suffered heavy losses and did not gain any advantages. However, Wuqing Pass was not as dangerous as Hanjiang Pass. It was surrounded by low hills, so it was not difficult for it to face a small-scale attack. But this time, the Kingdom of Song had mobilized almost all of its soldiers to attack Wuqing Pass. The Thousand Spirit sect was struggling a bit, so they asked us and the Cruel Sun Palace for help. They were afraid that the two sects would enter their territory and cause trouble, so they only asked the two sects to sell them some artifacts. These 20 flying warships were ordered by the Myriad Spirit sect, and the offensive magic tools were installed by them. That purple mansion elder pondered for a moment and said, "I remember that the Song kingdom is a small kingdom. In the southeast there is the Qi kingdom, in the south there is the Wu kingdom, and in the southwest there is the Chu kingdom. All of them are much stronger than the Song kingdom. Furthermore, the Song nation was divided into 6 factions. The royal Song clan did not have an advantage. For 2,000 years, they had been beaten so badly by their neighboring countries that they could not raise their heads. None of the 6 major forces were willing to submit to the other. If they jumped out alone, they wouldn't even be enough for the Myriad Spirit sect to practice on. Where did they get the guts to attack the Myriad Spirit sect?" Luo Juyo did not answer. Hall Master Gu continued. "A ruthless person appeared in the royal family of the Song nation. His name is Song Yan. This person's mother was the daughter of Zhao Lai Emperor, and his official wife was the daughter of the 6th prince. He could be considered half a member of the Zhao family, and had gathered many of the remaining members of the Zhao family. In just over 200 years, the Song family's strength had increased greatly. Song Yan was also a man of means. He tried to pull the other 5 factions to his side. More than 30 years ago, the 5 major forces submitted to the Song clan, and the Song kingdom was unified again. In the past few years, Qi, Chu, and Wu had attacked the Song kingdom many times. However, these 3 kingdoms were in a state of disunity. Only a few forces had attacked the Song kingdom. In the end, they failed to take advantage of the Kingdom of Song. On the contrary, the Kingdom of Song regained much of their lost land. More than 10 years ago, the forces of the 3 states withdrew from the Song nation's territory and turned to defense. Song Yan had recovered a large amount of lost land, and his prestige had increased greatly. He was a little too conceited and wanted to expand. He did not dare to attack the 3 great nations. To the east was the Heavenly/Mountain Range. To the west was the Zheng nation and the Zhou nation. With a strong nation like the Song nation backing them, he did not dare to attack the Song nation. In addition, with the instigation of the remnants of the Zhao family, the Song kingdom began to have designs on our Zhao kingdom. The 6 major powers of the state of Song combined are weaker than the 3 major sects of the state of Zhao. There are only a dozen or so golden core cultivators in total, which is much weaker than the 20 golden core cultivators in our 3 major sections. Their middle and low-level combat power is also far inferior. But this time, the Kingdom of Song had mobilized almost all of its forces. The Thousand Spirit sect was unable to withstand it. If it was just the Kingdom of Song attacking the Thousand Spirit sect, we could watch the show. But Song Yan is attacking the Thousand Spirit sect in the name of avenging his grandfather and helping the Zhao family restore their kingdom. We can't just ignore it. However, the Thousand Spirit sect can still hold on for now. They only let the Netherworld sect sell some magic weapons. If they can't hold on in the future, we may have to participate in the war. The Zifu disciple took a deep breath and said, "But we can't sell all of our flying warships. We have to keep enough warships for ourselves, in case we need to fight in the future." Luo Juyo smiled and said, "Elderly is right. We can build 20 flying warships in half a year. The Thousand Spirit sect will pay for these warships with spirit stones. We can earn spirit stones and nurture our own refiners and formation masters. In the future, we will build even higher level flying warships." Then he asked Hall Master Gu, "Hall Master Gu, I remember that the refining hall should have 10 refining workshops. Just the East First refining workshop alone can build 3 warships. Could it be that the refining hall can build 30 warships in half a year?" Hall Master Gu cupped his hands and said, "Sect Master, the refining hall is short on manpower. Building 20 flying warships is already very difficult. This little friend of Wang Daoyuan is proficient in both the Tao of artifacts and formations. He has the ability to command refiners and formation masters to build the core and keel of the warships. I sent some extra people to him. One of the 3 warships was made by the East First Crafting Workshop." Luo Juyo looked at Wang Daoyuan and said with a smile, "So it's Daoyuan. You are really my Netherworld sect's lucky star. More than 40 years ago, you discovered the beast tide in advance and allowed the sect to react in advance. You also took the opportunity to give the Thousand Spirit sect a fierce blow. Last time, when we fought for the Spirit Stone Mine with the Cruel Sun Palace, you heavily injured Lei Wudao and helped the sect take a sixth of the mine. Now you can build flying warships for the sect. As long as there is a place for you, the sect will benefit. I really look forward to the day you establish your Zifu and become an elder of the sect." Wang Daoyuan thought, "What's the use of saying so much nonsense? Give me a piece of Yin-Yang purple jade. It's more useful than anything." However, he still had to say some polite words. He cupped his hands and said, "It's natural to work for the sect." At this time, an elder said in a strange tone, "The Wang family was a subject of the Zhao clan. Zhao Lifeng Zhenren is indebted to Zhao Lifeng. Now that the Song Kingdom is using the banner of reviving the Zhao Kingdom, I wonder what the Wang family's position is?" Wang Daoyuan thought, "Is this guy stupid? The sect leader had just finished praising his own achievements. And now you're speaking in such an eccentric manner. Aren't you implying that the sect leader is blind? He's probably another idiot from the foreign faction. He's used to being arrogant in the past few years and doesn't look at the current situation. In the past, there were many experts from the foreign faction. The Netherworld sect and the Cruel Sun Palace fought for territory and needed to rely on the foreign factions. However, most of the foreign factions were alone. The families that were established later couldn't increase the number of people in a short time. These years they were weak. There were many people in the old families and talented disciples entered the Netherworld sect in large numbers. In the Netherworld sect, the foreign factions still led the upper echelons. However, the middle and lower echelons had an advantage. The remnants of the Zhao clan emerged, and the old families' hearts were unstable. The Netherworld sect needed to treat the old families well and compete with the Zhao clan for people's hearts. In addition, Elder Jean was seriously injured. The importance of the foreign factions was getting lower and lower. If they didn't restrain themselves now, they would be courting death. As expected, Luo Jiuyo's expression turned ugly. Wang Daoyuan immediately replied, "The Wang family and the Zhao clan didn't have a marriage alliance. What the Wang family got from the Zhao clan was nothing more than Yuchuan Peak. However, in the war back then, our ancestor killed 5 golden core cultivators of the Cruel Sun Palace for the Zhao clan and repaid the Zhao clan's favor. More than half of our clansmen died in the war. None of the clansmen who took the Zhao clan's salary survived. The princes of the Zhao clan abandoned the country and no longer had the right to command it. For more than 300 years, the Wang family was a subject of the Netherworld sect and should serve the Netherworld sect. The Zhao clan was incompetent. Back then, they had a strong army but still couldn't win. Now the Netherworld sect is thriving, and the Zhao clan is only left with a defeated army. They have no hope of winning. How can the Wang family abandon the light and join the dark side? The Wang family is loyal to the Netherworld sect. I hope the sect master can understand. These words not only showed that the Wang family had no motive to join the Zhao clan, but also flattered the Netherworld sect. Luo Jiuyo was very pleased and his expression became much better. He glanced at the elder and angrily rebuked. The Wang family is naturally loyal to the Netherworld sect, and can be called a model for all the clans. As an elder of the sect, you dare to slander a meritorious member of the sect. What are your intentions? The elder was so frightened that he quickly knelt down and kowtowed to admit his mistake. Chapter 325. At this time, Luo Jiuyo's anger had mostly dissipated. He snorted and said, "Go back to your cave residence and reflect. Don't come out without orders from me or the Grand Elders." After the Violet Mansion elder kowtowed and thanked him, he immediately left the refining hall and went back to his cave residence to reflect. After driving away the annoying fly, Luo Jiuyo smiled and said, "Since Beiyuan can command third-grade lower-grade array masters and refiners to refine third-grade lower-grade flying warships, we'll send more." Then he would send another 23rd-tier lower-grade weapon refiners, 10 third-tier lower-grade array masters, and 52nd-tier weapon refiners. They'll all be under your command to refine flying warships for the sect. As for the other refiners and array masters, they'll be led by Hallmaster Gu to refine third-grade middle-grade flying warships. I estimate that the Myriad Spirit sect won't be able to hold on for more than a few years. We'll have to participate in the war sooner or later. If we can have one more warship, we'll have fewer disciples dying. The survival of countless disciples is in your hands. Hallmaster Gu and Wang Daoyuan said in unison, "We won't let you down, Sect Master." Luo Jiuyo nodded with satisfaction. Hallmaster Gu asked, "What about the identity of Daoyuan's little friend? He hasn't officially joined the sect, so the refiners and array masters won't listen to him." Luo Jiuyo thought for a while and said, "Daoyuan hasn't joined the sect, so it's not convenient for him to take up a post in the sect. His spiritual sense cultivation is extraordinary, so it won't be difficult for him to establish a Violet Mansion. In 20 or 30 years he'll be an elder. There's no need to change the sect rules for the next 20 or 30 years. Hallmaster Gu, give him a steward's token, and use it to give orders for the time being." Hallmaster Gu took out a token and handed it to Wang Daoyuan. He smiled and said, "Little friend Wang, you'll be a temporary steward. After you establish a Violet Mansion and become an elder, you'll be an official steward." Wang Daoyuan took the token and expressed his gratitude. Luo Jiuyo smiled and said, "I've seen the East First Refining Workshop. There's no need to see the other workshops. The third-grade refiners and array masters will be rewarded with 10,000 spiritual stones each. The second-grade refiners will be rewarded with 3,000 spiritual stones each. Hallmaster Gu, arrange for people to send these 20 flying warships to the External Affairs Hall. The cultivators of the Myriad Spirit sect are still waiting in the External Affairs Hall." With that, Luo Jiuyo led the group out of the weapon refining hall. Everyone from the crafting hall bowed and said, "Farewell, Sect Master." After Luo Jiuyo's group left, Hallmaster Gu shouted, "Yin Chong, bring some men and send all the flying warships to the External Affairs Hall." Then, according to the sect master's instructions, he arranged people for little friend Wang. "Little friend Wang, do you still need to change your refining place?" Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and said, "This East First Crafting Workshop is already very good. There is no need to change it." Hallmaster Gu nodded and said, "Then we'll continue to stay here. If there's anything, look for Yin Chong. Su Tingxian and Drunkard, you two cooperate with little friend Wang. If you can satisfy the sect master, the weapon refining hall will recommend the two of you to establish a Violet Palace." Su Tingxian and Drunkard were pleasantly surprised. Although they might not be able to get the Yin Yang Purple Jade with the Hall Master's recommendation, it was already very rare. In addition, they had refined the flying warships for the sect, which was a great merit. As long as they were recommended by the Hall Master, the sect master would not bury their contributions. The two cupped their hands and said, "Rest assured, Hall Master. We will definitely cooperate with Daoyu Wang." Afterward, Hall Master Gu also left with his men. Inchong was very efficient. In just one day, he had brought all the people Luo Juyo had asked for. Most of these people were from the affiliated families of the Netherworld sect. Yang Ziyuan, the head of the Yang family, and the Liang family's foundation establishment elder were also among them. Wang Daoyuan preferred to use these people. Although their level was lower than the disciples of the Netherworld sect, they did not have the arrogance of the disciples of the Netherworld sect, and were easier to command. Moreover, this group was mainly made up of cultivators from the old families. Fifth great-uncle Wang Jian was now an elder of the Violet Palace, so the cultivators from the old families were also willing to give face to the Wang family. There were also disciples from other families, but they were few in number, and would not be able to make any big waves. Wang Daoyuan took out his steward's command medallion and said with a smile, "Fellow Daoyu Wang, I have received orders from the sect master to lead you Daoyu in refining the flying warships. Regardless of whether we are from the sect, clan, or faction, we only have one goal. That is to complete the task the sect master gave us. Refining the flying warships will benefit all of us. Let me say the ugly words first. If anyone causes trouble inside, although it is not convenient for me to act, I still have the ability to report to Hall Master Gu." Although the steward's command medallion was only for temporary use, ordinary people did not dare to look down on it. All the Violet Palace disciples of the Netherworld sect had the title of elder, but this elder was only an honorary title, and did not have any real power. Only elders who could participate in important decisions of the sect were truly valuable elders. The stewards of the various halls also had a high status. They were only below the sect master, the elders with real power, and the hall master. Only the Violet Palace elders could hold these positions. Yang Yang's position as the guardian of the clear glass market was on the same level as the stewards of the various halls. In a situation where their ranks were the same, the stewards stationed outside naturally could not compare to the stewards of the sect. Wang Daoyuan's position as a temporary steward was comparable to that of the Violet Palace elders, and was even higher than that of ordinary elders with no duties. This group of foundation establishment disciples did not dare to look down on him. The group of people who had been refining the flying warships with him had originally been under the command of Wang Daoyuan, so they naturally did not have any objections. The old clans naturally did not have any objections, and the disciples of the other clans did not dare to voice their objections. Seeing that no one had any objections, Wang Daoyuan continued, "Apart from me, there are currently 31 third-rank tool forgers and 13 third-rank formation masters. Fellow newcomers Daoyu, I don't understand your level, so I can't casually assign you. How about this? Fellow newcomers Daoyu will first refine the side plates, ribs, and deck. After I have seen your level of refining, I will assign you other tasks. Fellow new formation masters, you will first assist these 3 experienced formation masters, and then you will be assigned other tasks." Now he did not need to slowly understand the blueprints. He only needed to hold the blueprints, and he could assign tasks to each cultivator. This was because he had more manpower, and in addition to his own improvement. This time, he only used 2 months to refine the flying warships. After the refining was completed, these tool forgers were also selected. There were 5 tool forgers whose level was not very good, and were not suitable to refine the core of the warships. There were also 6 foreign cultivators. In order to prevent them from causing trouble, Wang Daoyuan also pushed them out. These 11 people were responsible for refining the outer shell of the warships. As for the dozens of second-rank tool forgers, they could not inscribe third-rank tool patterns, but it was not a problem for them to collect the materials and forge them into shape. With sufficient manpower, Wang Daoyuan divided the manpower into 2 groups, and they were both building 2 flying warships at the same time. At the beginning of the construction, it took 3 months to refine 2 flying warships. Later on, the participants became familiar with the refining method of the flying warships, and the speed increased continuously. They could finish the refining in 2 months. If they could refine 2 warships at the same time, they could refine 12 flying warships in a year. As for the Myriad Spirit sect, They had to buy a few third-rank lower-rank flying warships every year, as well as many other Dharma artifacts. 5 years later, the Myriad Spirit sect finally could not hold on after resisting the Song Kingdom for 10 years at Wuqing Pass. They sent out their Purple Mansion sect elders to seek help from the Crescent Sun Palace and the Underworld sect. The Song Kingdom was using the excuse of avenging the Zhao clan, and the 3 major sects were all in the same boat. Once the Myriad Spirit sect collapsed, the Song Kingdom would invade the Zhao Kingdom. If they supported a member of the Zhao family and made him the emperor of the Zhao Kingdom, there would definitely be a large number of old clans that were dissatisfied with the 3 major sections. At that time, the 3 major sects would be dealt with. Therefore, the upper echelons of the Crescent Sun Palace and the Underworld sect agreed to participate in the war, and the war between the Zhao and the Song Kingdom officially began. Chapter 326. Not long after, Wang Daoyuan received an order from Hall Master Gu to immediately install offensive and defensive magic artifacts on the remaining third-order low-grade flying warships. In the past 5 years, the East First Crafting Workshop had refined more than 60 flying warships. Every year, the Thousand Spirit sect would buy a few to replenish their losses. There were still 30 left in the Netherworld sect. Hallmaster Gu and the others had also made some third-order middle-grade flying warships and tried to refine third-order high-grade flying warships. It was just unknown how many third-order high-grade flying warships they had refined. Wang Daoyuan and the other family cultivators were not qualified to ask about these things. Since there was an order from above, they would obediently install magic artifacts on the warships. Installing offensive and defensive magic artifacts on the flying warships was a bit similar to the magic artifact array. When the warships were being refined, they had reserved the array eyes for installing magic artifacts. As long as the magic artifacts were installed on the reserved array eyes, they could rely on the warships to provide spiritual power. Of course, they could not reserve too many array eyes, otherwise, it would destroy the integrity of the warship's array. Wang Daoyuan only reserved 6 array eyes on the flying warships. It was not difficult to install more magic artifacts. They just had to fix the magic artifacts on the warships, but the spiritual power needed to be supplied with middle-grade spirit stones. The magic artifacts were all refined in advance, so installing them did not take much effort. The East First Crafting Workshop had a lot of manpower, so it only took 5 or 6 days to install all 30 warships. After a simple test, Wang Daoyuan reported to Hallmaster Gu. After entering the crafting hall and seeing Hallmaster Gu, Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "Hallmaster Gu, all 30 third-order low-grade flying warships have been installed with magic artifacts. Please send someone to inspect them." Hallmaster Gu had just finished refining a flying warship core. Judging from the spiritual power fluctuations, it should be third-order high-grade. After freeing his hands, he smiled and said, "Daoyuan, you did well. Inchang will soon inspect them. By the way, it won't be long before our Netherworld sect goes to Wuqing Pass. All the cultivators who participated in the refining and our sect's cultivators will follow Inchang to Wuqing Pass to be responsible for repairing the warships. You family cultivators must also participate in the battle and listen to Inchang's orders at any time. Of course, you will be fighting alongside the cultivators of your own clans. After Inchang takes control of the warship, a Zifu elder will send you off." Wang Daoyuan took out the steward token and cupped his hands. "Hallmaster Gu, since the task of refining the flying warship has been completed, I will return this steward token to you." Hallmaster Gu waved his hand and said, "There's no need for that. The sect master said that you have refined more than 60 flying warships for the sect in the past few years. However, as the war was about to begin, all resources would have to be used for the war, so there would be no rewards for the time being. I'll give you this token. From now on, your status and authority will be equivalent to the official steward of the crafting hall. With this command medallion, you can mobilize 10 foundation establishment cultivators of the sect who are not under orders." Wang Daoyuan bowed and said, "Thank you, sect master." "Thank you, hall master." Then, he left the main hall and returned to the East First Equipment Forging Workshop, waiting for Yin Chang to come and take over the flying warship. This time, Luo Juya was finally generous. He gave him the identity of a manager, status, and a command medallion. Although he was not an official manager in name, his real power was exactly the same as an official manager. With this command medallion, his status was about the same as Yang Yang's, and his status was higher than Wang Jian's and Liang Liang's. Wang Jian's and Liang Liang's positions were idle elders. They did not have actual duties. If they mobilized the Foundation Establishment Cultivators of the Netherworld sect, the Foundation Establishment Cultivators would not dare to disobey. However, once the mobilized Foundation Establishment Cultivators were injured or killed, they would have to bear the compensation and the like. Moreover, they would be held responsible for abusing their power for personal gain. This was a very serious crime. With this steward's command medallion, it was different. If the mobilized Foundation Establishment Cultivators were injured or killed, the compensation would be paid by the sect. If his order was not wrong, he would not be held responsible. Even if the order was wrong, he would only be held responsible for the improper command. The punishment for this crime would not be too heavy. It could be said that the Netherworld sect was definitely not willing to reward the Yin Yang Purple Jade. Among the things that could be rewarded, there was really nothing more valuable than this command medallion. Not long after Wang Daoyuan returned to the East First Equipment Forging Workshop, Yin Chang came to take over the warship. After everyone saluted, Yin Chang announced that they were about to go to war. Soon after, he left the workshop. A group of people followed behind him on the warship. An hour later, a Zifu sect elder came. He cupped his hands towards Wang Daoyuan and said, "Steward Wang, I've come to send everyone back to the clan. This should be an idle elder. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so polite to a Foundation Establishment cultivator like him." However, he was a Zifu sect cultivator after all. He couldn't be arrogant. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your trouble, senior." The Zifu sect cultivator said, "You're welcome," and took out a 30-meter-long third-grade flying ship for everyone to board. Soon after, the Zifu sect elder steered the flying ship away from the Netherworld sect and flew directly to the northern part of Clearglass County. After arriving at the northern part of Clearglass County, he didn't directly fly to Clearglass City. Instead, he first flew to Jade Spring Peak. This Zifu sect elder was also a snob. However, one would not slap a smiling face. Since he was treated with respect, Wang Daoyuan naturally couldn't be rude. After bowing to the Zifu sect elder, he left the flying ship and returned to Jade Spring Peak. At this moment, the clan elders were all in a meeting. Wang Daoyuan walked in. Wang Shui said with a smile, "Daoyuan, you finally returned. The Netherworld sect has issued a conscription order. They want our Wang clan to send out 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators and 20 Qi Refinement cultivators. They say they want to help the Myriad Spirit sect resist the invasion of the Kingdom of Song. Our clan has a total of 140 cultivators. Sending out 20 people isn't a big deal. However, the Netherworld sect's order is for Elder Yang to oversee Clearglass City. 5th uncle will stay at Jade Spring Peak. If anything happens, he'll be ready to reinforce Clearglass City and Gold Goose City in the north. The one leading our clan in the northern part of Clearglass County is that old bastard Liang Liang. Although it's not explicitly stated that we're under his command, he's the only Zifu sect cultivator on the battlefield who can compete with him for command. If that old bastard has the chance, he won't do anything to trick our Wang clan. I don't have any way to counter him. Do you have any good ideas?" Wang Daoyuan said with a smile. "I can't think of any good ideas either. However, I can play hard. This time, I've helped the Netherworld sect refine flying warships and performed well. The Netherworld sect's sect master gave me the position of temporary manager and told me to lead dozens of Tier 3 weapon forgers and formation masters to refine Tier 3 low-grade flying warships. In these 5 years, we've refined more than 60 flying warships for the Netherworld sect. Right now, the Netherworld sect is in wartime control of all resources. They didn't reward me with any resources. They only gave me the manager's token. My authority is the same as an official manager. Old ancestor Yang's position is equivalent to a manager. Liang is just an elder without any duties. In terms of status, he's even inferior to a manager. If I take out the manager's token and play hard with him, he'll have to obediently give up command. Hearing this, all the elders felt relieved. Wang Daoyuan asked, "The Netherworld sect requires me to participate in the battle. Has the clan decided on the candidates?" Wang Shui nodded and said, "It's decided. The original 4 foundation establishment cultivators are me, 8th brother, 9th sister and Dao Xing. Since you have to go, then leave 9th sister behind. She's a water attribute cultivator and isn't strong in battle. In addition, 20 Qi refinement clansmen have already been chosen. They can set off at any time." Wang Daoyuan said solemnly, "12th uncle, you should stay behind. The main force of this battle is Zifu sect cultivators. Foundation establishment cultivators are just small pawns in the vanguard. In addition, those outsiders have been plotting against you. It's too dangerous for you to go." Chapter 327. The other elders also felt that this was reasonable, and didn't want Wang Shui to go. But Wang Shui didn't agree and waved his hand. "Let's not talk about this. If it's dangerous for me, then won't it be dangerous for you? As the clan leader, you should protect the clan from the wind and rain. I've been the clan leader for so many years, and you've always been the one to take on dangerous missions. Now that 5th uncle is here, the foreign faction won't be as rampant as before. The possibility of them taking action in this kind of battle isn't high. This time, going to Wuqing Pass is also a battle to defend the city. With the city walls and defensive artifacts, it won't be as dangerous as you think. Before I reached Foundation establishment, I traveled outside for a few decades, and didn't I still live well? At worst, I'll just bring a few more things to protect myself. I'm going to take part in this battle, mainly to share some of the risks for you. You have the authority to manage now, and after you open up your Zifu, you'll be an official manager. Plus, you're strong in fights of magical power, and you're proficient in all 4 paths. You'll definitely be put in an important position. In a few years, you'll quickly grow into a leading figure of the clan. The possibility of the foreign faction scheming against you is even greater." Seeing that he was determined to take part, Wang Daoyuan didn't try to persuade him anymore, saying, "Since you've decided, I won't try to persuade you anymore. When do we assemble?" Wang Shui smiled. Elder Yang sent news that the northern clans of Qingli Prefecture will arrive at Qingli Market within 5 days. Afterwards, we'll take a flying boat to 3 River Market at the intersection of the 3 sections. After we arrive, we'll listen to the instructions of the Netherworld sect's Jindan ancestor. As for the following arrangements, Elder Yang hasn't informed us." Wang Daoyuan nodded, saying, "I've never experienced this kind of battle between 2 armies, and a battle to defend a city. I also don't know how to fight. Everyone, try to bring as many things as possible. All kinds of pills, talismans, artifacts, and a few more storage bags. It's better to be prepared. It's best not to bring spirit beasts or spirit insects. We're in the 1,000 spirit sects territory. If we bring spirit beasts and spirit insects, we'll be in trouble if we run into some blind 1,000 spirit sect disciples. The less trouble, the better. Let's try not to provoke trouble." No one had any objections. 8th uncle Wang Shoujiang left the meeting hall to deliver orders to the clansmen who were participating in the battle and distribute supplies. These Qi refinement cultivators participating in the battle were all cultivators of the Shou and Dao generation. They did not have any special skills. Wang Daoyuan was already close to 90 years old. 4th uncle Wang Shuyuan, 5th uncle Wang Shuyi, 6th uncle Wang Shoufeng, and 7th uncle Wang Shouhong had all passed away. More than half of the Shou generation cultivators had withered away, and most of the remaining cultivators were over 100 years old. Apart from 5th granduncle, the rest of the Ji generation had all withered away. There were only a dozen or so people of the Shou generation left. Even the oldest of the Dao generation was only in his 90s, not to the point of withering away. Originally, there were only 30 or so people in the Dao generation. In recent years, the Wang clan has been giving preferential treatment to the close relatives of pregnant cultivators. The cultivators of the Shou generation married a large number of wives and concubines and gave birth to many cultivators. Currently, there were more than 50 cultivators of the Dao generation. The number of cultivators from the Ming generation grew faster and faster. Now there were already over 70 people. Among them, there were also some cultivators who could shoulder great responsibilities. For example, Wang Ming's great-grandson Wang Mingshan. He was only in his 20s and was already at the 7th level of foundation establishment. His talent in alchemy was not bad, and he was already a first-stage superior-grade alchemist. There was no need for Wang Daoyuan to take care of him. When his cultivation reached the peak of qi refinement, Wang Daoyuan could just give him a foundation establishment pill. 3 days later, everyone boarded the Jade Spring flying ship and headed to Qingli City. When they arrived at the entrance of the Netherworld sect's encampment, they found that most of the people from the various clans in the northern part of Qingli County had already arrived. A foundation establishment cultivator came out of the Netherworld sect's encampment and cupped his hands towards the cultivators of the various clans. Elder Yang has ordered for the foundation establishment cultivators of the various clans to enter for a discussion. Wang Shui instructed the qi refinement cultivators of the clan. You all wait here first. The 20 qi refinement cultivators replied in unison, yes. Wang Daoyuan and the other 3 followed the Netherworld sect's foundation establishment cultivator to the discussion hall. There were already people in the hall. Yang Yong sat at the head of the table, while Liang Liang sat at the head of the table on the left. After entering the hall, Wang Daoyuan did not stand on ceremony and directly sat at the head of the table on the right. It was not appropriate for Wang Shui and the others to sit at the head of the table. After all, their seniority was lower. Although Wang Daoyuan's seniority was lower, he had the authority of the Netherworld sect's artifact forging hall. Yang Yong definitely knew about this, but he did not say anything. The other foundation establishment cultivators also did not dare to interfere in the matters of the 3 great Zifu clans. After everyone had arrived, Yang Yong said, "Everyone, this time, the Song Kingdom has mobilized all its forces to invade the kingdom of Zhao. The Myriad Spirit sect has already resisted the Wuqing Pass for more than 10 years. Although the Myriad Spirit sect is strong, it is difficult to resist the attack of the entire Song Kingdom. Now that the Myriad Spirit sect cannot hold on, once the Song Kingdom breaks through the Wuqing Pass, they will be able to break into the hinterland of the Zhao Kingdom. The 5 counties south of the Wanchuan River will be difficult to defend. Once the Song Kingdom obtains the 5 counties, the north of the Wanchuan River will also become a battlefield. When that time comes, I'm afraid that even the foundations of your clans will be destroyed by the flames of war. In order to protect the Zhao Kingdom and for your clans, we must support the Myriad Spirit sect and repel the Song Kingdom's invasion. I need to guard the Clear Glass Market and cannot participate in the battle." The sect did not specify who will lead the cultivators of the clans. "You can discuss among yourselves. I still have matters to attend to, so I will take my leave." The clans did not really care that the Song Kingdom wanted to destroy the 3 great sections. This was because most of the clans only had a few qi refinement cultivators join the Underworld sect. The others were not involved. Giving up a few qi refinement cultivators at the crucial moment was not a problem. The clans did not care who ruled the Zhao Kingdom. However, if the flames of war spread to their own territories, they would definitely not be willing. Furthermore, the Underworld sect's conscription order could not be ignored. If they wanted to fight, then so be it. As for who would lead the clans, only the 3 great Zifu clans would fight over it. The other clans did not have the qualifications and would not interfere. The Yang clan's patriarch, Yang Ziyuan, should have gotten the message from Yang Yong. Furthermore, Liang Liang was here. He had no interest in fighting for the position of leader. Liang Liang stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Since Elder Yang and Elder Wang are not here, as the only Zifu disciple on this trip, I naturally will not pass on the responsibility of leading the cultivators of the clans." Wang Daoyuan said coldly, "Wait. Elder Liang has been guarding the western border for many years. You are not familiar with the cultivators of the various clans. In addition, you're already old. So why do you have to trouble yourself over this matter? Junior will handle the trivial matters of leading the clans. The cultivators present were somewhat puzzled. The fact that Wang Daoyuan was highly regarded by the underworld sect's patriarch was known by all the cultivators of the clans, who went with him to forge artifacts. However, the fact that he still had the steward's medallion in his hands was unknown to the others. Everyone had originally thought that it would be Liang Liang, Yang Ziyuan, and Wang Shui fighting for the position of leader. Unexpectedly, Wang Shui and Yang Ziyuan did not speak. Instead, it was the junior Wang Daoyuan who spoke up. Liang Liang snorted coldly and said, "A child still wet behind the ears. Do you want to manage this old man?" Wang Daoyuan took out the steward's medallion and said, "I definitely do not dare to compare age. Elder Liang is almost 490 years old, right? Junior's age is only a fraction of yours. My fifth great-uncle is not even 200 years old. How could he dare to compare with you?" However, Junior was previously summoned by the sect to assist in forging flying warships. Afterwards, Junior's artifact forging and formation skills both broke through to the third rank. The Patriarch ordered me to command several dozen Daoyu to forge flying warships. In 5 years, we forged over 60 flying warships. Due to the Patriarch's high regard, he bestowed upon me the Artifact Forging Hall's Steward's Medallion. Although I am not a disciple of the Underworld sect, nor am I an official steward of the Underworld sect, I have all the authority of a steward. I am in charge of the various clans' cultivators with the authority of a steward. Which Daoyu has objections? Chapter 328. Seeing Wang Daoyuan take out the token, all the Foundation establishment cultivators present stood up and saluted. "Greetings, Steward Wang." After all, they were all working for the Netherworld sect. Whether they were sincere or not, they had to show some respect. The stewards of the Netherworld sect had a higher status than the elders with no duties, so everyone naturally had to salute. Wang Daoyuan waved his hand. "Daoyu don't have to be so courteous. I haven't joined the Netherworld sect yet, so I'm not an official steward. I'm just exercising my authority. Elder Liang, I don't dare to command you. Let's do it this way. Those who are willing to listen to me follow me. Those who are willing to listen to you follow you. What do you think?" Liang Liang thought for a while. There was no point in continuing to cause trouble. He had no chance of winning. The title of elder with no duties was not as good as a steward with real power. He sighed and nodded. "Let's do it this way." Everyone began to stand in line. Those who were willing to accept Wang Daoyuan's command stood on the right. Those who were willing to follow Liang Liang stood on the left. Wang Daoyuan's previous words were also a hidden threat. Liang Liang was already close to 490 years old. He only had a dozen years left to live, but Wang Jian was less than 200 years old. One would rather bully a white-haired old man than a poor young man. Moreover, this young man from the Wang clan was not poor. He was even stronger than the white-haired old man from the Liang clan. If they followed Liang Liang to the end and waited for Liang Liang to pass away, the remaining few hundred years would be slowly dealt with by the Wang clan. Apart from the Huang clan and 2 or 3 other clans that were very close to the Liang clan and had enmity with the Wang and Yang clans, the other clans all stood on Wang Daoyuan's side. A few foreign clans also chose to stand on Wang Daoyuan's side, Liang Liang's side, and did not say anything else. Wang Daoyuan smiled. "Since the matter of the commanders has been discussed, let's go." Then a Foundation establishment cultivator from the Netherworld sect walked in and led everyone to the training field. It was the place where the strength of the participants was screened before the duel between the 2 sections. It was very spacious, but there was a giant flying boat in the courtyard. The flying ship was over 200 feet long and 70 to 80 feet wide. One ship could fit several hundred cultivators from various clans who were participating in the battle. Wang Daoyuan shouted, "Foundation establishment cultivators of each clan, bring your own qi condensation cultivators onto the ship." The Foundation establishment cultivators spread out and quickly brought in the qi refinement cultivators from the various clans. The cultivators of the various clans boarded the ship according to the strength of their respective clans. Because Wang Daoyuan was the commander of this trip, the Wang clan was the first to board the ship, followed by the Yang clan and the Liang clan. After all the clans had boarded the airship, several Foundation establishment disciples of the underworld school boarded the airship and entered the cabin, where the airship was controlled. A Foundation establishment cultivator asked Wang Daoyuan, "Steward Wang, all the participating cultivators have boarded the ship. Can we set off now?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "We can leave now." The flying boat slowly rose to a height of 1,000 feet before flying southwest. The speed of this flying boat wasn't very fast. It could only fly a little over 1,000 miles in 2 hours. It wasn't easy for such a large flying boat to fly at such a speed. After all, it was a large flying boat used for transportation, and one had to consider the consumption of spirit stones. The faster it was, the more spirit stones it would consume. The Three River Market was at the southernmost tip of Darkwater Commandery, where the three sects intersected. The distance between Clear Glass Market and Three River Market was about 60,000 miles in a straight line. This flying boat would only take 4 to 5 days to reach Three River Market. It was considered very fast for such a long-distance deployment to only take 4 to 5 days. Furthermore, the Myriad Spirit sect wouldn't ask for help only when they were at the end of their rope. They would be able to hold on for a few more months. The flying boat flew within the territory of the Underworld School. There was a conspicuous flag of the Underworld School on the ship, so no one dared to have any ideas about this flying boat. The journey was safe and sound. 5 days later, the flying boat landed at Three River Market. The Three River Market was divided into 3 parts by the river, with each of the 3 major sects occupying a part. The part occupied by the Underworld School was near the mouth of the Darkwater River, and the western part was the territory of the Cruel Sun Palace. The part occupied by the Myriad Spirit sect was not on the southern bank of the Myriad River, but on a small island in the middle of the Myriad River, only 3 to 4 miles away from the northern bank. The shops of the 3 sects added together exceeded 6,000. This scale was not something that Clear Glass Market could compare to. The flying boat that Wang Daoyuan and the others were on landed in a spacious courtyard of the Underworld School's base in Three River Market. Seeing the flying boat land, a Zifu disciple immediately walked over. Wang Daoyuan and Liang walked off the flying boat, while the others continued to stay on the flying boat. Whether or not they would rest here would depend on the instructions of the Underworld School's Jindan Patriarch. After everyone had alighted, the Zifu disciple cupped his hands and said, "Steward Wang, Elder Liang, please follow me inside and listen to the instructions of the Dark Sea Patriarch." The Dark Sea Patriarch was the Grand Elder of the Underworld School. His title was the Dark Sea Spiritual Master, and he should be over 900 years old. It seemed that the Underworld School had also been careful in assisting the Myriad Spirit sect this time, by sending the Dark Sea Spiritual Master, who was nearing the end of his lifespan. Even if the Myriad Spirit sect turned hostile, the losses wouldn't be too great. If the Dark Sea Spiritual Master died in battle, then they could still extort the Myriad Spirit sect. The Underworld School's attitude could be seen from the fact that they had sent Liang, while Yang Yong and Wang Jian did not participate. Of course, not all of the upper echelons that the Underworld School had sent were nearing the end of their lifespan. They had also sent Hallmaster Gu, a cultivator with a bright future. Hallmaster Gu was only over 300 years old, and his cultivation was already at the peak of the Zifu realm. He was a seedling that could form a golden core. The Underworld School had probably sent him to the front lines to be able to repair the high-grade Grade 3 flying warships at any time. Wang Daoyuan and the others followed the Zifu disciple elder into a large hall, where an old black-robed cultivator sat on the main seat. Wang Daoyuan had seen golden cores many times. The aura that the Dark Sea Spiritual Master emitted was slightly stronger than the sect master of the Underworld School, but it was far inferior to the Thunderflame Spiritual Master. After all, the Thunderflame Spiritual Master was an expert in a top force like the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Naturally, he was not someone that the Dark Sea Spiritual Master could compare to. After Wang Daoyuan and Liang took their seats, The Dark Sea spiritual master did not say anything. Hallmaster Gu said, "The cultivators from the north of the Qingli County have also arrived. All the cultivators participating in this battle have arrived. If there's anything you need, please tell us. If there's nothing else, we'll be heading to the Wuqing Pass." A few Zifu realm cultivators stood up and talked about some trivial matters. Hallmaster Gu immediately ordered people to settle it. After that, no one said anything else. Hallmaster Gu announced that everyone was heading to the Wuqing Pass. Of the 5 counties under the Myriad Spirit sect, 4 of them were close to the Wanchuan River. Only the Wuqing County, where the Wuqing Pass was located, was far from the Wanchuan River. Without the Wuqing County, the Zhao country's territory would be a trapezoid, wide in the north and narrow in the south. The Wuqing County was like a sword that extended from the bottom of the trapezoid, piercing the heart of the Song country. The entire Wuqing County was more than 60,000 miles long from the north to the south, and only 4,000 to 5,000 miles wide from the east to the west. This county originally belonged to the Song country. However, the Zhao country had been attacking the Song country for several generations. After the Wuqing Pass was taken, the Song country had no place to defend, so it submitted to the Zhao country. The Song emperor asked the Zhao country's princess to marry, and the 2 countries intermarried. The Zhao country did not continue to attack the Song country. Instead, it went north to wipe out the demon clan. The Wuqing Pass was 100,000 miles away from the Three River Market. The reinforcements of the Underworld sect, accompanied by the cultivators of the Myriad Spirit sect, had to go around the important industries of the Myriad Spirit sect. After half a month, they finally arrived at the Wuqing Pass. Looking from the sky, the east and the west were all lofty mountains. In the middle, there was an opening that was about 1,000 miles wide. This opening was not flat land. It was formed by intermittent mountain ranges. In the middle of the opening was a flat passage that was 3 to 4 miles wide. The main city of the Wuqing Pass was located on this flat passage. The city walls blocked the entire passage. Chapter 329. Wuqing Pass, on the other hand, was rather majestic. Its walls were several hundred feet tall. Outside the pass, there were 2 circular fortresses with a diameter of several hundred feet. They were like 2 fangs erected outside, preventing the enemy from directly attacking the main city. If they directly attacked Wuqing Pass, the enemy would be attacked from 3 sides. Of course, Song was not stupid enough to attack the main city of Wuqing Pass. However, Wuqing Pass was not a natural stronghold. The mountain ranges on both sides of the main city were full of loopholes. These mountain ranges were not connected, but separated by a dozen canyons. Even the spirit veins were intermittent. Under such circumstances, it was impossible to set up a large formation to cover the entire Wuqing Pass. They could only set up small formations to protect each section of the mountain range. This was the reason why this place was hard to defend. It was inevitable that there would be gaps between these small formations. To fill these gaps, they would need to build another stronghold. Building a stronghold would require more people to guard it, and the cost of defense would be higher. The width of these mountain ranges was also very small. The widest part was no more than 5 kilometers. The tallest mountain was no more than a few hundred feet. The south was a plain. It was easy for the enemy to launch an attack. In the past decade, Song did not attack the main city of Wuqing Pass. Instead, they attacked these strongholds. In the cultivation world, there were also sneak attacks where Foundation establishment cultivators flew over the pass and attacked the enemy's rear. In the past, when the various countries were fighting for hegemony, such a tactic was common. However, after a long time, the various countries came up with a countermeasure. They used scorched earth, set up a large formation behind the pass, and sent experts to guard it. After the enemy flew over the pass and arrived at the rear, they relied on the large formation to fight a war of attrition with the enemy. They did not fight the enemy head-on. Instead, they sent experts to kill the enemy's mid-level and low-level cultivators to delay the enemy. When the enemy's high-level cultivators attacked, they immediately returned to the large formation. Attacking the large formation did not make up for the losses. It was not much different from attacking the pass directly. In this way, the enemy would be exhausted from running for their lives without a safe place to rest. On the other hand, they would wait for the enemy to be exhausted. After a while, the enemy would have no choice but to retreat. The deeper the enemy went, the harder it would be for them to retreat. The cultivators stationed at the pass intercepted them, easily wiping out all the enemies that had entered the pass. In a situation where they did not have an absolute advantage, the tactic of flying over the pass and entering the enemy's rear was fatal. The number of golden core cultivators in the state of Song was less than that in the state of Zhao, and the number of Violet Palace realm cultivators and Foundation Establishment realm cultivators was even lower. Therefore, the cultivators of the Song Kingdom did not dare to cross the short mountain and could only attack the fortress continuously. If they could capture one of the forts, they would be able to cross the short mountain and outflank Wuqing Pass without fear of being cut off from the rear. The dozen or so large flying boats of the underworld sect eventually landed in the north of the main city of Wuqing Pass. The cultivators on the flying ship disembarked one by one and lined up on the ground. There were more clans in the territory of the Netherworld sect. There were about 300 clans in total. This time, they had sent out more than 400 Foundation Establishment cultivators and more than 5,000 Qi Refinement cultivators. In addition to the cultivators of the main sect, there were more than 600 Foundation Establishment cultivators, more than 7,000 Qi Refiners, 20 Zifu disciples, and 1 Jindan cultivator. This was enough to wipe out an ordinary Jindan power. A Jindan cultivator and 5 Zifu disciples came out from Martial Success Pass to receive them. Adept Nethersea led Hallmaster Gu and the other Zifu disciples of the Netherworld School into Wuxing Pass, following the cultivators of the Myriad Spirit School. The others continued to wait outside. For hours later, more than 10 Zifu disciples came out. They led the Qi Refinement and Foundation Establishment cultivators and dispersed. Wang Daoyuan and the other clans in the north of Clearglass Commandery had more than 400 Qi Refinement cultivators and more than 30 Foundation Establishment cultivators. They were led to a fort. Although it was called a fort, it was actually a small city. East of the main city of Wuqing Pass, there were a total of 7 forts. Wang Daoyuan and the others came to the third fort from the east. Because the main forces of the Myriad Spirit School were placed in the main city of Wuqing Pass, it was convenient for them to reinforce the forts at any time. Therefore, the main direction of attack of the Song Kingdom had always been the easternmost and westernmost forts. Because they were farther from the main city, there was a chance for a successful sneak attack. The other forts suffered much less attacks. After all, they were closer to the main city and reinforcements were faster here. Wang Daoyuan's fort on the east side didn't encounter a single probing attack in the past few days. After all, they were here to reinforce. If the Myriad Spirit School placed them in the most dangerous place, they were afraid that they would refuse to help. The Zifu disciple of the Myriad Spirit School led Wang Daoyuan and the others into the east side of the castle. There were quite a few cultivators standing guard inside. The Zifu disciple called out, "Leave behind 100 Qi Refinement cultivators to help control the defensive magic artifacts. The rest of the cultivators are to withdraw. This fort will be left to the reinforcements of the Netherworld School." Soon, an early Zifu disciple came down from the walls. Laughing, he said, "Thank you, Daoyu of the Netherworld School, for coming to reinforce us. Please send someone up to the walls to take over with us." Wang Daoyuan led the others up the walls. The cultivators of the various clans and the Myriad Spirit School took over each section of the wall. The side of the fort that faced the enemy was only 30 meters long. 200 people were enough to defend it, and some were even on shift. On this 30-meter-long wall, there were 30 high-grade second-grade demon-slaying crossbows and 3 low-grade third-grade demon-slaying crossbows. These demon-slaying crossbows didn't have a high success rate against flying cultivators. However, it was extremely effective against large magical artifacts used by the enemy to attack cities, including flying warships. Wang Daoyuan used 200 clan cultivators to replace the defending cultivators of the Myriad Spirit School. The 100 Myriad Spirit School cultivators, in charge of controlling the crossbows, continued to remain on the walls. After the replacement of the defenders on the walls, the Zifu disciple on duty led them to the city's storehouse. There were more than 100 demon-slaying crossbows stored here. Finally, they inspected the formation. The formation used by this castle was the Gold Fiend's soul-severing formation as well. However, this formation wasn't a simple high-grade second-grade formation. It had undergone many improvements. This Gold Fiend's soul-severing formation used magic artifacts and had a total of 12 formation cores. 9 of them were protected by high-grade second-grade magic artifacts, while the other 3 were protected by low-grade third-grade magic artifacts. These magic artifacts were naturally metal type as well. Flying swords were the main ones, but there were also darts, needles, and other sneaky magic artifacts. Amongst the high-grade second-grade and low-grade third-grade magic artifacts, there was a metal-type shield, which was used to defend against enemy attacks. After all, the Gold Fiend's soul-severing formation was only an offensive-type formation. It didn't have any defensive properties, and could only rely on magic artifacts to make up for it. This formation was extremely important. The Myriad Spirit School wasn't willing to let Wang Daoyuan and the others take over, so they sent 2 Foundation Establishment cultivators to continue guarding it. Wang Daoyuan didn't mind. They were here to defend the city, not to seize power. If the Myriad Spirit School wanted to defend it, they could do as they pleased. He could also save 2 Foundation Establishment cultivators. After everything was handed over, the Zifu disciple originally stationed here led the 200 or so people out of the castle. Wang Daoyuan smoothly took over the city's defense and became the highest commander of this castle. Although he didn't have any experience in defending a city, he had read many military books in his previous life, so he knew the basic arrangements. The most important formations and demon-slaying crossbows had already been set up, so he didn't need to worry about them. What he needed to do was to arrange the people he brought. He ordered all the Qi refinement cultivators, who were good at long-range attacks, to step forward. Immortal cultivators paid more attention to long-range attacks, so there were quite a few cultivators who were good at long-range attacks. There were about 100 of them. Almost all of these people were proficient in one or more types of long-range attacks, and their attack power was relatively strong. However, defending the city was too wasteful. The work of defending the city was all left to the cultivators, who weren't good at long-range attacks. These cultivators who were good at long-range attacks would be the mobile force, supporting the areas that were struggling. Of the 300 or so Qi refinement cultivators who weren't good at long-range attacks, 200 of them were placed on the southern wall, while the others were placed on the northern wall. The cultivators on the northern wall were completely a reserve force. Unless someone flanked from behind, there was no need for them at all. The east and west sides were cliffs, and the mountains were protected by third-grade formations. He didn't need to worry about them at all. Chapter 330. Naturally, Foundation Establishment cultivators could not be used to defend the city, but to deal with enemy Foundation Establishment cultivators under the protection of the formation. Liang, a Zifu Realm cultivator, was a great weapon. If the enemy did not send Zifu Realm cultivators, or third-order flying warships, there was no need for him to fight. After Wang Daoyuan and the others set up camp at the 3 eastern fortresses, a few days passed. It was still peaceful, and there was not even a shadow to be seen south of the fortresses. However, flying warships could be seen flying over their heads every day. These flying warships were responsible for patrolling everywhere to prevent enemy sneak attacks. Of course, there were also warships that went to the easternmost fortress. There were small-scale battles almost every day, and there would be a more intense battle every few days. Even if the enemy came to harass them, they had to send flying warships over. If the enemy turned their act into reality, it would be terrible. As long as there was movement from Song, the flying warships from Zhao would have to set off. However, these flying warships were not afraid of being intercepted midway. After all, the entire mountain range was protected by more than 10 formations, and the flying warship's flight path was always within the range of the formations. If Song dared to enter the formations to intercept them, Zhao would be so happy that they would give up as many golden core cultivators as they sent. The enemy's harassment could only make them waste more spirit stones. Half a month after Wang Daoyuan took over the 3 eastern fortresses, the enemy finally made some movements. A few Foundation establishment cultivators were sneakily peeping at more than 500 feet away from the fortress. This distance was beyond the shooting range of second-order high-grade demon extermination crossbows, and the spells of Foundation establishment cultivators could not reach them. The third-order demon extermination crossbows could shoot that far, but it was not worth it to release such a powerful weapon for these small fries. Moreover, the 3 eastern fortresses were located closer to the south of the canyon. 500 feet south of the city was already out of the range of the mountain range, and they could not go out to deal with them casually. Wang Daoyuan only reminded everyone to be vigilant, as the enemy could attack at any time. He also asked a few older Foundation establishment cultivators to keep an eye on the situation outside the fortress. Foundation establishment cultivators did not need to sleep, but they needed to cultivate. For older cultivators, there was no more hope for their Dao path, so there was no point in cultivating. Wang Daoyuan promised to give them more resources, so they gladly agreed to give up on cultivating and wholeheartedly observe the enemy. The main city of Wuqing Pass would send supplies every few days to ensure the daily life and cultivation of the cultivators stationed there. Wang Daoyuan, as the supreme commander of the 3 forts in the east, naturally handed these things to him, and he distributed them to everyone. This was the main reason why Wang Daoyuan and Liang Liang were fighting for power. If the right to distribute the supplies fell into Liang Liang's hands, the cultivators of the old family would be in for a miserable time. However, Wang Daoyuan did not use his position to avenge his personal grudge. Even if they were from a foreign family, they were treated equally when distributing resources. In the face of a great enemy, they needed to maintain internal unity as much as possible. There was no need to resort to such petty tricks. Over the next few days, the enemy's Foundation establishment cultivators became more and more active, as if a storm was coming. After more than 10 days, the enemy finally began to serve the main course. On a foggy morning, a rolling sound came from the southern end of the valley, as if something heavy was rolling on the ground. It was just that under the thick fog, it was impossible to see the situation in the distance. Spiritual sense was not afraid of this ordinary fog, but the place where the sound came from was still relatively far away. The mountain path was not a straight path, which affected the detection range of spiritual sense. On this mountain path, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense detection range was only about 3,000 feet. 3,000 feet was already within the range of the second-grade demon exterminating crossbow. If the enemy came with the demon exterminating crossbow, by the time he discovered the enemy's demon exterminating crossbow would have already hit his head. Wang Daoyuan roared, "Everyone prepare for battle." The Qi disciple cultivators who were still dozing off, and the Foundation establishment cultivators who were meditating immediately became alert and walked to the city wall. Wang Daoyuan mobilized the wood and water attribute spiritual power, fusing them together to form the wind attribute spiritual power, and then cast the first-grade wind attribute spell, Wild Wind Technique. Wang Daoyuan used the 5 elements spiritual power to fuse the 3 types of spiritual power. Casting the 3 types of spells was relatively slow and not very reliable in actual combat. But casting the wind attribute spell to disperse the fog was very practical. The wind blew for a full 100 breaths of time, but only blew away the fog within 2,000 feet. This was very abnormal. Although Wild Wind Technique did not have any lethality and could only blow the wind, the effective range was extremely long. With his strong spiritual power casting Wild Wind Technique, under normal circumstances, the fog within 3,000 feet should have been completely dispersed. Now it only blew away the fog within 2,000 feet. Either the fog was not natural, or someone was suppressing his spell. Either way, it meant that the enemy was about to make a move. Wang Daoyuan immediately sent a message to Hallmaster Gu, reporting the situation here and asking for support. The rolling sound was getting closer and closer, and soon it was more than 3,000 feet away. He used his spiritual sense, but still could not detect the situation over there. Since his spiritual sense could not detect, he changed his method of detection. He condensed the earth and fire attribute spiritual power between his hands. This was to use the meteor fall technique to test the waters. After 5 breaths, the spiritual power was condensed. 10 flaming meteorites flew out of the spiritual power one after another, smashing towards the place where the sound came from. Ordinary spells could only be cast within the range of spiritual sense control. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense control range was less than 3,000 feet in the absence of external obstacles. To attack something 3,000 feet away, there was no accuracy. However, the meteor fall technique was more special. It used the earth attribute spiritual power to condense real stones. After this thing was shot out, it was like throwing a stone. It could be used without spiritual sense control. The attack range was extremely long, but the accuracy was a bit poor. The enemy also pushed over a big guy. It would not be too flexible, so it did not matter if the accuracy was poor. After half a breath, more than 3,000 feet away in the south, 10 clang clang sounds like stones hitting steel came. The last sound was broken, accompanied by a few screams. This was breaking something of the enemy, and it also affected a few people. The cultivators stationed on the city wall all shouted good. It seemed that the thing that made the rolling sound should be something refined with some kind of metal material. The lethality of the flaming meteorite was 20 times that of the second-rank mid-grade golden knife talisman, and 10 times that of the second-rank high-grade golden knife talisman. This thing was equivalent to taking 90 pieces of the second-rank high-grade golden knife talisman, and then it was broken. This strength was far beyond the general second-rank high-grade magical weapon. It should be the level of the third-rank low-grade magical weapon. After another half a cup of tea's time, the rolling sound appeared again. Wang Daoyuan once again used the meteor fall technique, but it did not hit anything. After 100 breaths, the enemy entered within 3,000 feet. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense could already detect it. He saw a few strange cars appear in the south of the city. The car was more than 3 feet long, and about 1 foot wide. It was covered with a thick tortoiseshell-like metal shell. The metal tortoiseshell was engraved with a third-rank tool pattern. It seemed that it was this tortoiseshell that blocked the flaming meteorite. Wang Daoyuan once again used the meteor fall technique, hitting one of the cars. As soon as the flaming meteorite was shot out, 3 cultivators at the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm rushed out and blocked all 10 flaming meteorites. One of the Foundation Establishment realm cultivators mocked. This flaming meteorite is still not enough. Daoyu, did you not eat enough? Is the power of the spell only so little? Wang Daoyuan thought to himself, reckless things. You dare to play psychological tactics with me. I'll let you know what is called the immensity of heaven and earth. He transmitted his voice to the cultivators controlling the second-rank high-grade demon-destroying crossbows. In a while, see where my meteorites hit. You control the crossbows to aim there. Listen to my orders. When I tell you to release, you release. Not too early or too late. The cultivators controlling the crossbows responded in unison. Chapter 331. Among the cultivators present, there were very few who could use their divine senses to probe beyond 3,000 feet. Even most Foundation Establishment cultivators couldn't do it, let alone Chi refinement cultivators. Even if they could control the demon-exterminating crossbows to shoot beyond 3,000 feet, everything would be in vain if they couldn't see where the target was. Wang Daoyuan's flaming meteorites could guide them. He condensed a ball of spirit power in his hands and smashed it towards the armored car. As expected, the 3 Peak Foundation Establishment cultivators came out to block the flaming meteorites again. While they were condensing their spirit power, Wang Daoyuan shouted, "Fire!" 32nd grade superior grade demon exterminating crossbows fired at the same time, aiming at the direction of his meteorites. One of the 3 Peak Foundation Establishment cultivators reacted quickly and fled on his sword. The other 2 didn't react and continued to cast spells to break the flaming meteorites. After breaking 5 meteorites, They were hit by the light beams of the 30 demon exterminating crossbows. After the light beams, the two disappeared into thin air, leaving only dozens of sword fragments on the ground. The remaining 5 flaming meteorites were blocked by more than 10 flying swords. Unfortunately, the enemy's armored car was blocked by rocks. The demon exterminating crossbows could only attack in a straight line and couldn't hit the armored car behind the rocks. Wang Daoyuan's flaming meteorites could change their direction slightly and hit the armored car behind the rocks, but they were far less powerful than the demon exterminating crossbows. The enemy didn't dare to block the demon exterminating crossbows, but there were many experts who could take the flaming meteorites head-on. The flaming meteorites alone weren't enough to cause much damage to the enemy. The Earth Divine Thunder could cause great damage to the enemy, but Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to use it at all. Now the enemy Foundation establishment cultivators had learned their lesson and didn't show themselves at all. They only relied on their flying swords to shoot down the flaming meteorites, so the demon exterminating crossbows were useless. The armor on the enemy's armored car opened up like a beetle spreading its wings, revealing huge crossbows on the originally armored car. These huge crossbows were about the same size as demon exterminating crossbows, but demon exterminating crossbows relied on spirit power beams and didn't have bolts. However, these huge crossbows had long bolts. Several Qi refinement cultivators loaded the huge crossbows with mid-grade spirit stones. Apart from mid-grade spirit stones, using these huge crossbows also had to consume bolts. The price was even higher. However, the benefits were also very obvious. It was more powerful and could be shot out. Wang Daoyuan shouted, "The enemy is attacking the city with crossbow bolts. All Qi refinement cultivators hide well. Foundation establishment cultivators, prepare to shoot down the bolts with flying swords." The 2 Daoyu controlling the formation could use the formation to shoot down the arrows at any time. Lower all the demon exterminating crossbows. Don't reveal yourselves. The demon extermination crossbows were placed on a platform that could be raised. When attacking, the demon extermination crossbows would be raised. When he needed to hide, he would lower the demon extermination crossbow to a position lower than the city wall to avoid attacks. Everyone agreed in unison. The cultivator controlling the demon extermination crossbow quickly lowered it below the city wall and squatted down. The other Qi refinement cultivators either squatted or lay down, leaning against the city wall to cover their bodies. All the Foundation establishment cultivators took out their flying swords, ready to attack at any time. The array formation was activated in an instant, and an intense killing intent enveloped the entire fortress. One of the enemy Peak Foundation establishment cultivators shouted, "Fire!" And the cultivator controlling the armored chariot immediately shot the huge crossbow. 12 crossbow arrows that were more than 10 feet long flew towards the city wall with a sharp sound. The Foundation establishment cultivators on their side also took out their flying swords and attacked forward. When the crossbow arrows entered the range of 2,000 feet, more than 30 flying swords strangled them together. Unfortunately, the crossbow arrows were too powerful. Wang Daoyuan's spirit energy was strong, and his spirit consciousness was stronger than that of ordinary Peak Foundation establishment cultivators. Furthermore, he cultivated the sword control technique of sword cultivators. However, he still needed to attack 4 or 5 times before he could shoot down a crossbow arrow. There was no need to mention the other cultivators. 3 flying swords attacked a crossbow arrow at the same time, and they could not shoot it down no matter how many times they attacked. The crossbow arrows were extremely fast, and did not give them much time. In the blink of an eye, they had reached the city wall. Fortunately, the attacks of the Foundation establishment cultivators, flying swords weakened the power of the crossbow arrows. When the crossbow arrows hit the city wall, they did not have much power left and lost their accuracy. 8 or 9 crossbow arrows hit the city wall, leaving only a few white marks. The enemy Qi refinement cultivators quickly replaced the spirit stones installed on the crossbow carts, and the second wave of crossbow arrows descended. Wang Daoyuan and the others once again took out their flying swords to block, but the enemy Foundation establishment cultivators did not just stand by and watch. More than 40 flying swords flew out at the same time, and entangled the flying swords of Wang Daoyuan and the others. 12 crossbow arrows flew straight towards the city wall. At this moment, the killing intent of the entire fortress increased tremendously. 6 flying swords flew out and slashed at the crossbow arrows. Very quickly, 6 crossbow arrows were cut, and the remaining 6 arrows hit the city wall's battlements accurately. Fortunately, these city walls were made of large rocks. The strength of these rocks was comparable to that of superior grade 2 magic weapons. There were also grade 3 tool patterns inscribed on them, and their strength was not inferior to that of inferior grade 3 defensive magic weapons. However, these crossbow arrows were not to be trifled with. Although they were fired from superior grade 2 crossbows, the crossbow arrows were not simple superior grade 2 magic weapons. The arrowheads were inscribed with inferior grade 3 armor-piercing tool patterns. The 6 crossbow arrows nailed into the city wall and pierced 3 inches deep. The battlements were more than 3 feet thick, but this did not mean that the enemy would need to attack the same enemy 10 times to shatter them. If these crossbow arrows pierced into the city wall, it was very likely that they would damage the defensive tool patterns on the rocks. Once the defensive tool patterns were completely ineffective, the rock's strength would drop to that of a superior grade 2 magic weapon. Under the attack of an inferior grade 3 crossbow arrow, a single crossbow arrow might be able to pierce through 3 feet of rock. At that time, the city wall would be useless, and the demon exterminating crossbows would not be able to survive. All the Qi refinement cultivators would also have to flee. Only the foundation establishment cultivators would be left to rely on the formation to fight the enemy foundation establishment cultivators and the crossbows. The formation cores of the Gold Fiend Soul Severing Formation were also inside the fortress. If the city walls were destroyed, if the crossbow arrows accidentally hit the formation cores, the entire formation would be destroyed. Wang Daoyuan shouted angrily. The 2 Daoyu controlling the formation, is this all you've got? Why don't you use your grade 3 magic weapons to block the crossbow arrows? If you can't do it, then scram. I'll personally control the formation. At this moment, the enemy crossbow arrows attacked again. 6 superior grade 2 flying swords and 1 inferior grade 3 flying sword flew out. The inferior grade 3 flying sword's power was extraordinary. It cut through 3 crossbow arrows with 1 sword. However, 3 crossbow arrows were still nailed to the city wall. The defensive tool patterns on one of the rocks were completely destroyed by the crossbow arrows. Wang Daoyuan walked straight to the core formation core and said coldly, "Get out of the way." "I'll do it." The foundation establishment cultivator, who was not controlling the formation, was somewhat dissatisfied. It's already very difficult for a foundation establishment cultivator to control a grade 3 magic weapon. Do you know how to control a formation? The cultivator controlling the formation remained at his post and continued to control the flying swords to block the crossbow arrows. A scream came from outside. A rock on the city wall was pierced through, injuring the Qi refinement cultivator behind it. Wang Daoyuan sneered. "I'm a superior grade 3 formation master. Give me enough materials, and I can set up a formation even better than the Gold Fiend Soul Severing Formation. You think this formation is very advanced just because you changed 3 formation cores so that they can control inferior grade 3 magic weapons?" Hearing him say the formation's name and even know how to improve it, the 2 foundation establishment cultivators immediately got out of the way and handed the formation to him. Wang Daoyuan immediately sat at the core formation core and injected a stream of spirit energy into it. At this moment, the enemy fired another volley. He controlled 6 superior grade 2 flying swords and 1 inferior grade 3 flying sword to fly out at the same time. The power of 6 superior grade 2 magic weapons was really not enough. They could only cut through 1 crossbow arrow. Wang Daoyuan did not increase the amount of spirit energy he injected into the 6 flying swords. Instead, he injected a large amount of spirit energy and spiritual sense into the inferior grade 3 flying sword. The inferior grade 3 flying sword flickered with a dazzling golden light. It rapidly moved outside the city and actually cut through 6 crossbow arrows. This time, none of the enemy's 12 crossbow arrows hit the city wall. Chapter 332. The enemy fired another round of shots. Wang Daoyuan controlled the formation more smoothly and easily blocked the 12 crossbow bolts. With the power of Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense, it could only be said that it was a little difficult to control a third-order magic weapon through the formation. But for an ordinary cultivator in the late foundation establishment stage, it could only be done with all their strength. The enemy wanted to fight a war of attrition to exhaust Wang Daoyuan's spiritual power and spiritual sense. There was no need to consider spiritual power at all. Most of the spiritual power of the flying sword attack was provided by the formation, so he consumed very little spiritual power. But at the same time, controlling 7 flying swords to attack at the same time, including a third-order low-grade flying sword, the consumption of spiritual sense was still very large. Spiritual power was easy to recover. After drinking a few mouthfuls of spirit peach dew, his spiritual power began to recover in a dozen breaths. The recovery of spiritual sense was more troublesome. When he was outside, he could directly eat the lotus seed, but he couldn't take it out here. Besides, even if he ate the lotus seed, it needed to be refined for it to take effect. It would take at least half a quarter of an hour. It seemed that in the future, he needed to study a spirit wine that could restore spiritual sense, or a magic weapon that could preserve spiritual sense like the spirit gathering bead. At present, he could only eat a few second-order spirit awakening pills, which were also used to restore spiritual sense. It was just that the recovery time was relatively slow, at least a quarter of an hour of refining. The practical significance was not great, but it was better than nothing. Wang Daoyuan blocked 7 rounds of the enemy's bombardment in a row, and his spiritual sense had been consumed by more than half. From the time he reported the enemy's situation to Temple Master Gu, half a cup of tea's time had passed, and the flying warship should be arriving soon. Now it was a race for time to see if he could not hold on first, or the reinforcements would arrive first. The enemy took advantage of the fog to attack, and they would definitely not only attack the 3 eastern fortresses. The other fortresses were likely to be attacked. Looking at the other party's unhurried appearance, the 3 eastern fortresses should not be the main target. Otherwise, if they directly sent a few Zifu realm cultivators to rush in, the strength of the 3 eastern fortresses would not last long. Therefore, all the flying warships were delayed in the main attack fortress, and it was very likely that they would not come to support. If it continued like this, he would definitely not be able to hold on for long. However, he was already prepared. If he couldn't hold on any longer, he would escape with his clansmen. He had been carrying the jade spring on his person this entire time. So long as no Zifu disciples came to pursue him, it wouldn't be too much of a problem for him to take away the cultivators of his clan. Another wave of crossbow bolts came. Wang Daoyuan did not intend to use the old method to forcefully withstand it. Instead, he deliberately weakened the power of the Tier 3 flying sword. This time, the Tier 3 flying sword only cut down 5 crossbow bolts. The last crossbow bolt did not manage to reach the city walls. Instead, it was blocked by Wang Daoyuan's Tier 2 high-grade shield. The shield was also an array-suppressing Dharma artifact. However, the Gold Fiend's soul-severing array was a purely offensive Dharma array, and did not have a defensive light barrier. If he wanted to defend himself, he could only rely on his defensive magic artifact. After a few of these attacks, his defensive magic artifact would not be able to withstand it. This was also to lure the enemy into taking the risk, and then give the enemy a vicious blow. In order to make his disguise more convincing, Wang Daoyuan even transmitted his voice to Liang. "Elder Liang, help me block 2 crossbow bolts." Liang replied via voice transmission, "Why should I attack? I don't have many years left to live anyway. If I can drag the 2 geniuses of the Wang clan down with me, it will be worth it." Wang Daoyuan already knew that this old fellow was up to no good. He threatened via voice transmission, "If the 12th uncle and I can return safely, the Wang clan will become a Golden Core clan sooner or later. They can go to the Heaven Beheading Mountain Range to establish their territory. There is no need to keep an eye on your Liang clan's territory. The Liang clan can exist as a subsidiary clan of the Wang clan in the future. A Golden Core clan, accommodating the Liang clan is nothing. If the 12th uncle and I do not return, the Wang clan will at most be a Zifu clan. It is very difficult to establish the heaven-beheading mountain range. We can only fight for a small advantage in the northern part of Qingli County. At that time, if we don't destroy your Liang clan, how can my Wang clan be at ease? If you pay the price of not having any descendants and destroy my Wang clan's future, what will the Liang clan gain? The ones who benefit will only be the foreign faction. After you die, will the foreign faction still take the Liang clan seriously? After hearing this, Liang was silent. He was the clearest about the moral character of the foreign faction. They were a group of profit-seeking fellows. They simply would not care about the Liang clan, that did not have a Zifu realm cultivator overseeing it. Wang Daoyuan blocked another 2 waves of crossbow bolts. When the 3rd wave of crossbow bolts was about to descend, Liang snorted coldly and controlled a green-black longsword to strike out. Liang was worthy of being a veteran Zifu realm cultivator. Although his talent was not much, his strength was still not bad. A single sword strike broke 9 crossbow bolts. With this, Wang Daoyuan was relaxed. He only needed to control 3 high-grade Tier 2 flying swords. A burst of laughter came from outside the city. Daoyu, why do you need to get involved in a fight between Foundation Establishment juniors? Let me accompany Daoyu to play. Finished speaking. A fiery red longsword met Liang's flying sword and fought in the air. This flying sword was a low-grade Tier 3 flying sword. Looking at the spirit energy fluctuation on the flying sword, the opponent was only an early-stage Zifu realm cultivator, and was not a match for Liang. However, Liang was a wood attribute cultivator. His attack power was too weak, and was unable to end the battle quickly. Seeing this situation, Wang Daoyuan was not alarmed but instead delighted. He had finally caught a big fish. He immediately sent a sound transmission to Liang. Stall this flying sword. I'll use a formation to control 2 low-grade Tier 3 flying swords, and give it a fierce blow. Even if we can't cripple it, we have to heavily injure it. Liang did not speak. He only extended 2 green vines from his long sword, and entangled the fiery red Tier 3 flying sword. The opportunity had come. Wang Daoyuan poured as much spirit energy and spiritual sense as possible into the 2 low-grade Tier 3 flying swords. The 2 swords flew out from the eye of the formation, and chopped towards the fiery red longsword. A burst of violent spirit energy fluctuation appeared on the fiery red longsword, wanting to burn the vines and avoid the attack. What attribute cultivators' attack power and defense power were not good, but they were quite formidable in disgusting people. In addition, Liang's cultivation was higher than his opponent's. It was simply impossible for his opponent to escape. The 2 flying swords controlled by Wang Daoyuan chopped at the fiery red longsword at the same time. The fiery red longsword did not break, only becoming much dimmer. It did not even have the strength to struggle. Wang Daoyuan still had the strength to spare. He poured all of his spirit energy and spiritual sense into the 2 flying swords, and chopped at the fiery red longsword again. This time, the fiery red longsword was not spared. It was directly chopped in 2. A miserable cry came from outside the city. Afterwards, several people shouted, "Senior, what happened?" Wang Daoyuan was somewhat surprised. Could it be that the fiery red longsword that was chopped in 2 was a Zifu disciple's lifebound magic weapon? Lifebound magic weapons were magic weapons that only Zifu disciple and above could forge. After recognizing an owner, they would normally be stored in the Dantian to be nurtured. Lifebound magic weapons could follow the increase in the owner's cultivation level and continuously increase in grade. Its power would also far surpass ordinary magic weapons of the same grade. Of course, when a lifebound magic weapon was destroyed, the owner would also suffer a backlash. Seeing that this old fellow's flying sword had been destroyed, and he had suffered a backlash, this flying sword should have been his lifebound magic weapon. However, this flying sword was too weak. It probably had not been nurtured for long. Wang Daoyuan had not thought of this before. However, in order to destroy this flying sword, the price was not small either. A wave of crossbow bolts directly nailed the city wall. 10 of the stone bricks were destroyed. 2 of the crossbow bolts shot at the damaged bricks. They directly penetrated the city wall. destroying a god-exterminating crossbow, and seriously injuring 2 Qi disciple cultivators. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense was completely exhausted. He left the core of the formation. 2 myriad spirit sect cultivators immediately went to take over the formation to deal with the enemy's next attack. However, the enemy did not fire any more crossbow bolts. Instead, they began to retreat. This time, they finally succeeded in defending the fortress. Everyone let out a sigh of relief. The fog covered the sky, making it impossible to see the enemy's situation. No one dared to chase after them. They could only let the enemy escape. At this moment, a flying warship charged out of the fog. It swept past the west side of the fortress and pursued the enemy southward. Chapter 333. Wang Daoyuan sat down to recover his spiritual sense after leaving the core of the formation. He immediately transmitted a message to his 12th uncle Wang Shui. 12th uncle, put away the ballista bolts. Wang Shui immediately understood and used the water dragon art to sweep up all the bolts on the ground and the walls. He didn't let go of a single one, whether they were whole or broken. With Wang Daoyuan's refining skills, it was very easy to restore these crossbow bolts. If he could obtain the original ballista, the Wang clan would have another powerful magic tool. Although the other cultivators were also envious, they knew of his relationship with Wang Daoyuan and didn't dare to say anything. After all, the power to distribute the resources was in Wang Daoyuan's hands, so who would dare to raise an objection? If anyone dared to say anything, a portion of their resources would be deducted from them the next day. The flying warship was also very careful and didn't directly chase after the enemy. The flying warship hid within the myriad spirit sect's defensive formation and relied on offensive magic tools and long-range magic arts to attack the enemy. This way, even if the enemy had an ambush, they wouldn't dare to charge into the formation, nor would they pose a fatal threat to the flying warship. It was hard to say if the flying warship could kill the Violet Palace Realm cultivators and the group of Foundation Establishment cultivators, but the 12 armored chariots wouldn't be able to escape. It would be even better if he could seize the ballista and give it to him to repair. It would be easy to duplicate a high-grade second-grade magic tool. Half a cup of tea later, 2 more flying boats passed by the west side of the 3 eastern fortresses and headed south. In the south, the sounds of battle constantly rang out from the southern foot of Mount Wucheng. Wang Daoyuan couldn't care less. He ate a few spirit awakening pills and drank some spirit wine before sitting down to recover his spiritual power. A few people couldn't help but want to go out and help, but Wang Daoyuan refused. No one is allowed to take half a step out of the city. Tool refiners, repair the damaged bricks on the walls, and replace the ones that can't be repaired. Our mission is to defend this fortress. As long as we don't lose the fortress, we'll be considered meritorious. If you lose the fort and let the Song Nation invade, even if you kill 10 Purple Palace Realm experts, you will not be able to do anything. Anyone who wanted to leave was free to do so. In the future, don't come back. If you dare to come near the fortress, my flying sword will serve you. This time, no one brought up the matter of going out again. Several tool refiners began to repair the tool patterns on the Rock City brick. As for the broken bricks, they could no longer be repaired. There were spare bricks in the warehouse, so they just had to be replaced. Half an hour later, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual power and spiritual sense were fully restored. During this hour, another 5 flying warships flew to the south one after another. The battle in the south of the mountain was getting more and more intense. He walked out of the room where the core of the formation was located and patrolled the city walls to calm the people down. When he walked up the city wall, everyone was very respectful to him. In the battle to defend the city, he controlled the great formation, continuously blocking over 10 waves of crossbow bolts, displaying his valiant strength and withstanding the greatest pressure. In the end, he even used a formation to sever the enemy's Violet Palace Realm's natal artifact, directly establishing the victory. In a team, the prestige of a leader was accumulated in this way. Previously, everyone was afraid of him, afraid that he would embezzle their resources and feel unhappy. But now it was more of respect. He first went to visit the 3 injured Qi refinement cultivators. Of the 3, 2 were Thousand Spirit Sect cultivators, who controlled the demon-exterminating crossbows, and 1 was Yang clan cultivator. The 2000 Spirit Sect cultivators were heavily injured by the aftershock of the crossbow bolts. The Yang clan cultivator was cut by the blade of the arrow, and his entire left arm was cut off. Wang Daoyuan asked the Yang clan cultivator with the severed arm, "Do you still have your severed arm?" The Yang clan cultivator nodded. "It's still here. I put it in my storage bag." Wang Daoyuan smiled. "It's good that it's still here. I'll see if I can reattach it." The Yang clan cultivator was overjoyed. He thought that he would only have 1 arm from now on, but he didn't expect that there would be a chance to reattach it. He immediately took out his severed arm from his storage bag. Wang Daoyuan aligned the severed arm with his shoulder and said, "Retract all the spirit energy in your body back to your dantian. Don't use it no matter how painful it is later." After the Yang clan cultivator did so, Wang Daoyuan took out the spirit gathering pearl and extracted some spirit energy from it. He channeled the spirit energy into the Yang clan cultivator's severed arm and tried to open up his meridians. If the meridians were blocked, it wouldn't be of much use even if the arm was long. The spirit energy in the spirit gathering pearl contained a large amount of life force. When it passed through the severed arm, it connected the meridians and healed part of the wound. The Yang clan cultivator was excited when he regained some feeling in his left arm. Wang Daoyuan used the gray dragon bead and extracted the life force from the spirit gathering pearl to heal the severed arm. After a few dozen breaths, the wound was basically healed. The Yang clan cultivator moved his left arm a few times, and there was no obstruction at all, as though it was never severed. Wang Daoyuan instructed, "Don't use spirit energy in your left arm for the time being. The meridians have just been connected and are still relatively weak. Once you use spirit energy, your meridians might break." The Yang clan cultivator nodded. Yang Ziyuan cupped his hands and said, "Daoyuan, you have such a miraculous healing technique?" Wang Daoyuan smiled. "This is a technique that the sect master bestowed me during the last duel between the 2 sections. It's just that I need to extract the life force of humans and demon beasts in advance for the healing effect to be stronger. I stored some life force in advance, and if it's used up, the healing effect will be very poor. As for the 2000 Spirit Sect disciples, they suffered internal injuries, and this healing technique won't be very effective. I can only use rejuvenation to treat them." With that, he used rejuvenation on the 2000 Spirit Sect disciples. Their injuries also improved significantly, but they couldn't use spirit energy for a short period of time. The 2 of them thanked him profusely and retreated to the North City Wall to recuperate with the Yang clan cultivators. At this time, a flying warship flew over shakily. There were many injuries on the warship, and there were several Foundation establishment cultivators flying on their swords beside the warship. The warship landed inside the city wall, and more than 30 Qi refinement cultivators disembarked from the warship. The Foundation establishment cultivator in the lead was Su Tingxian, the deacon of the refining hall's East First Refining Workshop. When Su Tingxian saw Wang Daoyuan, he immediately cupped his hands and said, "Brother Wang, with you here, things will be easy. This flying ship has been damaged and needs to be repaired." With that, he said to the other Foundation establishment cultivators, "You guys go to the main city and bring some materials to refine the warship. This warship can't fly anymore, and it's too tiring to bring it back. Let's repair it here." Wang Daoyuan asked, "What's going on at Shannon? Why is the battle so fierce?" Su Tingxian smiled. "I have to ask you about this. Your East 3 fortresses broke the life-bound magic weapon of an early Zifu realm cultivator and seriously injured him. We wanted to capture that Zifu realm cultivator alive, but the other side sent reinforcements. Thus they started fighting at Shannon." Wang Daoyuan was somewhat puzzled. He asked, "It's just an early Zifu realm cultivator. Is there a need to spend so much effort?" Su Tingxian withdrew his smile and said solemnly, "Just an hour ago, the state of Song launched an all-out attack on all the fortresses. The West 4 fortresses were careless and were successfully ambushed by the Song cultivators in the fog. The entire fortress was razed to the ground, and all the defending cultivators were killed. One of the Zifu realm cultivators was chopped into pieces by the enemy's wild swords. This cultivator was also a member of our Netherworld sect. We sent more than 20 Zifu realm cultivators and more than 30 warships to force the enemy to retreat. However, the enemy came prepared and calmly retreated to Shannon. The people on our side all had a bellyful of anger. When they learned that a Zifu realm cultivator was seriously injured, they wanted to capture him to vent their anger. The other side also sent many reinforcements. Right now, there are still more than 20 flying warships in Shannon engaged in a bloody battle with the enemy. My flying ship was badly damaged and has almost no combat power left. I could only retreat. Chapter 334. After half a cup of tea's time, a large transport flying ship flew over from the north and landed outside the North City. Several Foundation establishment cultivators directed the Qi refinement cultivators to move down the materials, charcoal, tools, and so on used for refining. Finally, Yin Chang led a dozen Foundation establishment cultivators down from the flying ship. These Foundation establishment cultivators were the refiners and formation masters, who were under his command in the East First Refining Workshop. Wang Daoyuan and Su Tingxian immediately went forward to greet him. Yin Chang waved his hand and said, "Daoyuan, you don't have to be so polite. The battle in Shannon is fierce now, and the 3 eastern fortresses are the closest to the battlefield. Hallmaster Gu has decided to let the damaged warships be repaired here. I've brought you all the materials and tools needed to refine the warships. However, there's no earth fire here, and it can't be made in a short time. You'll have to make do with it first. If you have any other needs, just tell me. I'll try my best to fulfill them." Wang Daoyuan looked at the things brought by the flying ship and nodded. "Thank you, Senior. These things are enough. With the help of these Daoyu, it won't be a problem to continue refining the flying ship here, let alone repairing the damaged warships." Yin Chang smiled and said, "That's good. Contact me if you need anything." After the Qi refinement cultivators moved all the things from the flying ship, Yin Chang also left on the flying ship. With materials, tools, and helpers, repairing the flying warships was nothing. Wang Daoyuan led the refiners and formation masters to repair the damaged warships brought by Su Tingxian. After instructing everyone to remove a few seriously damaged side plates, he entered the interior of the warship to check the extent of damage to the warship's core. After inspecting the entire warship's core, he found that only one component was damaged. This damage was caused by a metal attribute attack spell. This attack penetrated the side plates and passed through the gap between the ribs. The remaining force hit the core component, leaving a few cracks. This core component was more important, as it was related to the spiritual power circulation of the entire core. Therefore, it was very difficult for the entire warship to fly. He got out of the warship and asked Su Tingxian, "There's a crack in an important core component. It can be used again after a simple repair. However, if the components were not replaced, it would be easy to cause problems in the future." This component was also rather important. Once it was damaged, the entire warship would not even be able to fly. If we change the components and work together, it will take us 2 days to refine one. Su Tingxian waved his hand and said, "Don't change it. Right now the South is fighting fiercely. How can we wait for 2 days? Repair it first." "It's fine as long as it's still usable. I'll be careful not to rush to the front." Wang Daoyuan nodded and said, "All right then. You guys refine a few pieces of sideboards to replace the ones that were destroyed. I'll go in and fix the core components." After saying that, he took the tools and materials and went back into the cabin. He smelted some of the same metal materials as the components to patch up the cracks. After that, he used metal wires to reconnect the damaged formation patterns and vessel patterns before resealing them. It took him more than 2 hours to finish repairing the core. After installing the spirit stones, the flying warship's functions were completely normal, and it could continue to fight. As for the other side plates, it would take a little longer to complete. It would take a person a day to refine them. Generally speaking, it was best for one person to inscribe the vessel patterns on an artifact. Otherwise, it would be easy to cause problems. However, Wang Daoyuan was already very familiar with the vessel patterns on the side plates. He divided the vessel patterns into a few parts and let a few people inscribe a part of it. The few of them could inscribe the vessel patterns together, and it could be used normally when they were combined. It saved a lot of time. It only took him 6 hours to refine a piece of side plate. There were many people here, so they refined a few pieces of side plates together. After 6 hours, they successfully repaired the entire flying warship. Su Tingxian led his men to board the warship and set off again. Wang Daoyuan and the rest did not stay idle either. The south was very lively, and there might be damaged warships. This time, they were not prepared and were in a hurry to repair the warship. In order to repair the damaged warship as soon as possible, they began to refine the side plates and deck of the warship. These two things were the most vulnerable to damage. After that, flying warships came one after another for repairs. However, these were not as badly damaged as Su Tingxian's warship. In addition, they were already prepared and only needed to replace 1 or 2 side plates. There were also some offensive artifacts that were damaged. This was not something that Wang Daoyuan and the rest could repair. It would take at least a few days to refine offensive artifacts that were suitable for the flying warship. This kind of work was naturally left to Yin Chang. The offensive artifacts sent by the main city were enough for them to install. The battle in the south of the mountain was getting more and more intense. The flying warships that were sent were not only from the Underworld sect, but also from the Thousand Spirit sect. There were even a few from the Cruel Sun Palace. He did not dare to refuse the orders from his superiors to repair the warships. For this, he was sent more than 30 third-tier lower-grade weapon refiners and array masters, as well as more than 20 second-tier weapon refiners to help him. Although these second-tier weapon refiners could not inscribe third-tier vessel patterns, they could still help forge the materials and reforge the damaged side plates. Many of these people were from the Thousand Spirit sect and the Cruel Sun Palace. He had the authority of the refining hall of the Underworld sect, so the cultivators of the Underworld sect were under his control. But it was hard to say for the cultivators of the other 2 sects, especially the cultivators of the Cruel Sun Palace. They wanted to swallow him alive. Not only did they not obey him, but they also went against him. In order to let him smoothly command everyone, the higher-ups of the 3 sects jointly gave him the position of temporary logistics chief. Before the end of the battle in the south of the mountain, the logistics of the 3 forts in the east were all under his control. The entire 3 forts in the east became the temporary logistics headquarters. There were constantly large flying ships transporting all kinds of materials to the 3 forts in the east. The 2 sides fought a war of attrition at the south end of the canyon, where the 3 forts in the east were located. After 2 days, there was still no sign of stopping. At this time, not only the damaged warships were sent, but also the wounded. He didn't know who it was that spread the news that he could reattach broken limbs, but a Foundation establishment cultivator with a broken arm and a broken leg was walking towards him. Su Tingxian was the first to send the wounded. Su Tingxian drove the warship back again. This time, the core was not damaged, but a few side plates were broken. However, he also brought a Foundation establishment cultivator with broken legs. Reattaching a broken leg was not a problem at all in normal times. It was hard to find medicinal pills to regenerate broken limbs, but it was not hard to find medicinal pills to reattach broken limbs. Jade Muscle Pill and Meridian Replenishing Pill could restore a broken limb to its original state. These 2 were 3rd-level lower-grade medicinal pills. Although precious, they were not rare. The 3 sects had many such medicinal pills. But now it was wartime, and the consumption of medicinal pills was great. They were given priority to Zifu realm cultivators to ensure their fighting strength. It was impossible to use them on Foundation establishment cultivators. At this time, Wang Daoyuan's Azure Dragon Pearl became the Foundation establishment cultivator's life-saving straw. Su Tingxian, an old friend, came to plead for mercy, so he could not ignore him. He could only treat the cultivator. After the treatment, Wang Daoyuan said to Su Tingxian, "To treat this kind of injury, you need life force. My life force is also limited. It needs to be extracted from people or demonic beasts. It's not easy to find demonic beasts here. But it's not difficult to catch people. Ask Daoyu on the battlefield to help catch a few captives and bring them over when the warship is repaired. You started this, and there will be more and more people coming to me for treatment. The life force I have left is only enough to save 7 people. You started this, so you can't leave it alone. Chapter 335. Wang Daoyuan had just given Su Tingxian face, so he naturally wouldn't ignore it. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, little brother. This is related to the lives of all the fellow Taoists on the battlefield. Everyone will definitely do their best to help fellow Taoists capture the captives." Less than 15 minutes after Su Tingxian left, a flying warship returned for repairs. There were 2 captives hanging from the side of the ship. One of the captives was at the early stage of foundation establishment, while the other was at the peak of qi condensation. They were tied up tightly with ropes. After the warship landed, the cultivators on the ship disembarked and handed the 2 captives to Wang Daoyuan. They also carried an injured foundation establishment cultivator behind them. The leading foundation establishment cultivator cupped his hands towards Wang Daoyuan and said, "Chief Steward Wang, I've brought the captives you wanted. Please help treat my brother." Although Wang Daoyuan felt that there was something wrong with this form of address, he still replied with a smile, "No problem. As long as there are captives, it'll be easy." He used the Azure Dragon Pearl to extract life force from the 2 captives. The effect of extracting life force from human cultivators was much weaker. The life force extracted from the 2 captives was only enough for 1 treatment. At most, there would be some left. It wouldn't be enough for 2 treatments. After all, in terms of size and physical strength, humans were much weaker than cultivators of the same level. Moreover, he had previously extracted life force from ferocious blood boars. Ferocious blood boars were famous for their powerful blood qi, physical strength, and so on were all related to vitality. It didn't matter if human cultivators had less life force. At least they wouldn't be at a disadvantage. After treating the injuries of the Foundation Establishment cultivator, the others repaired the warship and set off for the battlefield once more. The battle was still ongoing. In addition to directing the repair of the flying warship, Wang Daoyuan also had to treat dozens of injured Foundation Establishment cultivators. As the battle intensified, Wang Daoyuan also gained some understanding of the situation of this battle. At first, the Zhao side wanted to keep the injured Zifu disciple alive to vent their anger. The Song side naturally wouldn't let the Zhao side succeed. Instead, they wanted to use the Zifu disciple as bait to lure the Zhao cultivators out of the formation and fight outside. After all, the Zhao side had been guarding the formation all this time. The Song side had suffered great losses in attacking the fortress. Now that there was an opportunity to fight outside the array formation, they naturally had to seize it. At first, the Zhao kingdom did not think much of it. However, as more and more reinforcements arrived from the Song kingdom, they wanted to take the opportunity to deal a heavy blow to the Song kingdom. The 3 sects of the state of Zhao had gathered at Wuqing Pass. The strength of those below the Golden Core realm had already surpassed that of the state of Song. The Myriad Spirit sect had been suppressed by the Song kingdom for more than 10 years. And the Netherworld sect had a Purple Mansion elder killed in a sneak attack. Both sects wanted to do something big. The Cruel Sun Palace also wanted to end the battle quickly. After all, the Wei nation was causing trouble at the western border of their territory. If the sect's forces were placed outside for a long time, their rear might be unstable. The 3 sects all wanted to finish the job in one fell swoop. So naturally, the commotion became bigger and bigger. There were more than 100 flying warships gathered in the south of the mountain. Among them, there were more than 80 from the Zhao kingdom, and more than 40 from the Song kingdom. The state of Zhao had fallen from being a first-rate country to a third-rate country. However, they did not lose much territory, and their resources were still very rich. The Song state's territory was less than a third of the Zhao state's. It was impossible to compete with flying warships. However, the Song Empire had sent in far more Zifu disciples. The reason why the Zhao kingdom did not send in all their forces was because they wanted to use the flying warships to exhaust the Song Empire's mid-tier forces. The flying warships could be repaired. Even if they were completely reforged, it would only take a few months to refine a complete warship. However, to nurture a Zifu disciple, it would take an average of 170 to 180 years. There was no need to mention the consumption of various resources. The Zhao Kingdom's strategy was to use resources to suppress the Song Empire, using resources to exchange for the lives of the Song Empire's Zifu disciples. They wanted to defeat Song Yan's arrogance in one battle and make him obedient for a few hundred years. Furthermore, the Zhao Kingdom was backed by the Mountain Protecting Formation. If their cultivators were heavily injured or their flying warships were damaged, they could easily retreat to the Mountain Protecting Formation and recuperate. After they were healed and repaired, they could return to the battlefield. The Song Empire was in a difficult position. They wanted to retreat, but they did not dare to. The two sides were entangled. If the Song Empire's upper echelons dared to give the order to retreat, the Zhao Kingdom would chase after them. The Song Empire's army would definitely be wiped out. This small battle had already become the decisive battle that would decide the outcome of the entire war. The war that had lasted for more than 10 years would end in this battle. The Song Empire would take down Wuqing Pass and even invade the Zhao Kingdom's heartland. If the Zhao Kingdom won, the Song Empire would not be able to attack the Zhao Kingdom for the next few hundred years. Given the current situation, the Song Empire's chances of victory were slim. After all, the Zhao Kingdom had the advantage in terms of the number of cultivators of various realms. They also had sufficient flying warships to wear down the enemy. If the Song Empire did not have any special moves, their defeat was certain. After another 5 days, both sides were still increasing the stakes. The Zhao Kingdom wanted to end the battle and sent all their Zifu disciples to the battlefield. In the past few days, Wang Daoyuan had treated more than 300 Foundation establishment cultivators and repaired the flying warships more than 100 times. The Song Empire's injured cultivators and damaged warships could not retreat. This was equivalent to the Zhao Kingdom having more than 100 Zifu disciples. The battle in the south of the mountain was getting louder and louder. Suddenly, the entire castle started to shake. Wang Daoyuan immediately flew into the sky on his sword to observe the situation in the distance. The 3 eastern fortresses were only a few li away from the edge of the battlefield. However, due to the mountain's obstruction, the battle did not spread here. With the eyesight of a Foundation establishment cultivator, they could clearly see the situation in the air more than 10 li away. At this moment, the situation in the main battlefield was like making dumplings. The filling of the dumplings was the group of people who came to attack the 3 eastern fortresses, as well as the Song Empire's Zifu disciples who came to reinforce them. The Song Empire's cultivators wanted to counter-encircle them, but they did not succeed. The Zhao Kingdom relied on the mountain range and formations to protect their retreat, which was where the 3 eastern fortresses were located. The Song Empire's main camp was more than 100 li away from the main city of Wuqing Pass, a few hundred li away from the battlefield. The cultivators who came to reinforce the battlefield were intercepted by the Zhao Kingdom's cultivators halfway. The entire battlefield was divided into more than 10 sections, and each section was fighting its own battle. This situation had been going on for several days. The Zhao Kingdom had already decided to end the battle as soon as possible. They sent another 50 to 60 Zifu disciples to the battlefield. At this moment, the Zhao Kingdom was working hard to eat the filling of the dumplings. The Zifu disciples who had been surrounded by them were now more or less dead. After eating the filling of the dumplings, they could sweep the entire battlefield. The Song Empire was at a complete disadvantage. A large number of their cultivators were held back. When the Zhao Kingdom's cultivators made their move, only a few Song Empire's cultivators could escape. The Song Empire's upper echelons were not to be trifled with. 3 Golden Core cultivators flew out from the main camp and attacked the Zhao Kingdom's cultivators. When Golden Core cultivators attacked Zifu disciples and Foundation establishment cultivators, a single spell was enough to wipe them out. The Zhao Kingdom's Golden Core cultivators were already prepared. 7 golden core cultivators flew out from the main city of Wuxing Pass and surrounded the 3. If the 3 insisted on attacking, they would very likely be surrounded. Although golden core cultivators were not easy to kill, 7 against 3 was not a big problem. None of them wanted to be left behind. They could only give up on attacking and retreat towards the main camp. At this moment, another 4 golden core cultivators flew out from the main camp of the Song Empire. A total of 14 golden core cultivators faced each other in the air. A yellow-robed cultivator from the Song Empire wanted to continue attacking the cultivators below, but a myriad spirit sect's golden core cultivator stopped him. The 2 of them fought, and the aftermath of the battle injured many Zifu disciples and Foundation establishment cultivators below. Another golden core cultivator in aqua blue robes shot out a Gui water divine thunder. This person should be from the Zhao Kingdom's royal family. The Gui water divine thunder used by a golden core cultivator was not to be underestimated. A cultivator from the Crescent Sun Palace took out his magic weapon and blocked the Gui water divine thunder. This person's body flickered with an earthy yellow light. His body was extremely strong. One could tell at a glance that he was an earth element body tempering cultivator. After 2 consecutive exchanges, a golden core cultivator battle was about to erupt. Another gold core cultivator with white hair and beard flew out from the camp of Song Kingdom. He said to the other gold core cultivators, "The gold core cultivators from both sides are evenly matched. Even the old ghost of the Nether Sea can only fight to a draw with me. This time, the Song Empire was rude first and is at a disadvantage. We are willing to give up our territory and ask for peace. If the Daoyu agree, both sides will stop fighting. If not, none of the juniors on the battlefield will survive. The 15 golden core cultivators of the Song Empire will also fight to the death with all of you. Although there are few golden core cultivators in the Song Empire, it is not a problem to take out 10 golden core cultivators from the Zhao Kingdom. At that time, the Qi, Chu and Wu kingdoms will definitely take the opportunity to swallow the Song Empire and attack the Zhao Kingdom. The Wei Kingdom will also attack the Hanjiang Pass with all their might. If the Song Empire is destroyed, the Zhao Kingdom will follow in its footsteps. Chapter 336. The yellow-robed golden core cultivator from the state of Song stopped and argued, "Grandfather, we haven't lost yet. We can continue fighting. They don't dare to risk their lives. As long as we continue fighting, we will definitely win." The white-bearded golden core cultivator said angrily, "Song Yin, you like to take risks. You have succeeded many times to reach your current situation. However, if you know how to start a business, you also need to know how to preserve your achievements. You can't just take out some assets to fight. If they continued to fight, even if they won, it would be difficult to swallow the state of Zhao. If they lost, the state of Zhao would be destroyed. Right now, the Song nation's situation is the best it has been in the past few thousand years. There is no need to ruin the nation's fate for a moment of pride." Song Yin wanted to continue, but the white-bearded golden core cultivator rebuked, "I'm not dead yet. It's not your turn to cover the sky with one hand." The quarrel between golden core cultivators was extremely loud. Furthermore, they were fighting high up in the sky, so everyone within a radius of several hundred miles could hear them clearly. Wang Daoyuan felt that Song Yan's words made sense. If they continued fighting, only the myriad spirit sect would resist with all their might. If Song Guizhen really went all out, the golden core cultivators of the Netherworld sect and the cruel Sun Palace would not fight to the death. Instead, they would defend their own territories. However, what he did not expect was that the Song nation was not as united as before. The other golden core cultivators were willing to eat meat with him, but they were not willing to die with him. Secondly, he didn't understand the principle of the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Even if all the golden core cultivators in the Song kingdom listened to him, the loss of the myriad spirit sect would not be small. The Violet Palace realm and Foundation establishment cultivators would be wiped out. Once the Song kingdom suffered too many losses, it would become a fish on the chopping board. How could the powers of Qi, Chu, and Wu kingdoms not be tempted? By then, the Song kingdom would have enemies on all sides. It would only be a matter of time before the kingdom was destroyed. Song Yin was a very capable gambler. In just 200 years, he was able to reunite the Song kingdom, which had been divided for thousands of years. He was an excellent pioneer, but he liked to gamble too much and didn't care about his capital. He wasn't a good defender. The war had lasted till now, and it was just right for the Zhao country. The Song nation suffered heavy losses. However, it still managed to preserve much of its strength. While it lacked offense, it had plenty of defense. The forces of Qi, Chu and Wu did not dare to act rashly, and the Song kingdom did not dare to stir up trouble everywhere. On the state of Zhao's side, everyone looked at a green-robed golden core cultivator. This person was the first supreme elder of the Thousand Spirits sect. His name was Yulong Jinren. His spiritual beast was a 4th-rank upper-grade flood dragon. Yulong Jinren also knew the thoughts of Netherworld sect and Cruel Sun Palace. If they continued to fight, these two sects would not be happy. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, "We agree to a ceasefire. However, we do not want the Song nation's land. We want the Song nation to compensate us with spirit stones and other resources." This was a wise choice. There was no place south of Wuqing Pass to defend. If they occupied the territory of the Song kingdom, they would attract too much hatred. They needed to station a large number of troops to guard against the forces of the Song kingdom. The resources produced might not be much, but the cost of occupying them was very high. The Underworld sect and the Cruel Sun Palace had taken over the land, but the two sects couldn't take it. They still needed the Thousand Spirits sect to reward the two sects with resources. In this way, even if the Thousand Spirits sect won, their strength would drop for a short period of time. The seized land needed to be developed before it could be produced. To develop land, resources and manpower were needed. The Thousand Spirits sect had been defending the Song kingdom alone for more than 10 years. They had consumed a lot of resources and suffered a lot of casualties. They did not have enough resources to develop new territories. On the contrary, they urgently needed a large number of resources to nurture talents to maintain the operation of the sect. No matter how one looked at it, resources were better than land. The white-bearded cultivator from the Song nation nodded and said, "Let's have the Violet Palace and Foundation Establishment cultivators retreat first. We Golden Core cultivators can talk slowly." Venerable Yulong waved his hand, and the cultivators of the Zhao nation began to retreat to the north. He was not afraid of the Song nation playing any tricks. In this battle, the Song nation had lost 70 to 80 Violet Palace realm cultivators and 400 to 500 Foundation Establishment cultivators. Even if they wanted to go back on their word, they did not have the strength to do so. Both sides had stopped fighting, and there was nothing to see. Wang Daoyuan also landed on the ground. After half a day, the cultivators from the sects who came to help all left the 3 eastern fortresses. Palace Master Gu also sent a message, ordering him to hand over the 3 eastern fortresses to the Thousand Spirit sect cultivators. Then, he led the people out of the fortresses and gathered at the north of the main city. Wang Daoyuan handed over the fortresses to the Thousand Spirit sect cultivators and led the cultivators from the north of Qingli County to the north of the main city. At this time, there were already many people gathered there. The Underworld sect's dozen large flying ships were also waiting. However, the cultivators of the Underworld sect were not the only ones gathered. There were also many cultivators of the Cruel Sun Palace. It seemed that the two sects were not at ease with the Thousand Spirit sect and wanted to leave as soon as possible. If the Thousand Spirit sect was really ruthless and killed all the cultivators of the two sects who participated in the battle, the two sects would suffer great losses, and there would be a gap in talent. The Underworld sect and the Cruel Sun Palace had always been at odds, and it would be difficult for them to unite. In the future, the Thousand Spirit sect would really dominate the Zhao nation. This was very risky. If things went wrong, the two sects and the Song nation might attack them together. However, the benefits were also great. If they succeeded, the unification of the Zhao nation would be just around the corner. However, the Golden Core cultivators of the Thousand Spirit sect did not dare to make such a risky decision. At this time, The two sides had only stopped fighting for half a day. The Thousand Spirits sect could not make such a big decision in such a short time. Before the Thousand Spirits sect made up their mind, they would withdraw the cultivators and leave a dying golden core cultivator to negotiate. In this way, they would not be afraid of the Thousand Spirits sect falling out with them. Killing a dying golden core cultivator might cause them to lose their own golden core cultivators. It was not worth it. Soon, the men of the underworld sect were gathered. Everyone boarded the ship and left Wuqing Pass, flying toward the Wanchuan market. When they arrived at the Wanchuan market, the flying ships separated. Wang Daoyuan and the others boarded a flying ship and went straight to the Qingli market. After the Wanchuan market, they arrived at the territory of the underworld sect. They were completely safe. Everyone was also delighted. They had participated in a state war, and no one had died. Only a cultivator of the Yang family had lost an arm, which was reattached by Wang Daoyuan. They defended the 3 forts in the east and repelled the cultivators of the Song nation. They would definitely be rewarded. Wang Daoyuan felt it was a pity that he could not get the ballista. If he could refine the ballista and crossbow arrows, it would be very useful to strengthen the defense of Fallen Dragon Ridge. After returning to the Qingli market, everyone dispersed. Wang Daoyuan also took out the Jade Spring flying ship and returned to the Jade Spring Peak with his clansmen. He did not want to do anything else and directly went into seclusion to cultivate. Previously, he was dragged to the underworld sect by Luo Juyo to refine the flying warship. He did not cultivate for more than 5 years, so his cultivation did not improve much. In a few years, his clone, Wu Yi, would be able to gather 350,000 contribution points in the Shanbei branch. He had 400,000 to 500,000 spirit stones on him. After selling some magic tools, medicinal pills, talismans and the like, and taking 100,000 spirit stones from the clan, he would have enough. However, his cultivation was still stuck at the 8th level of foundation establishment. If he did not raise his cultivation to peak foundation establishment as soon as possible, he would not be able to use the Yin-Yang purple jade. After a month of seclusion in the cave abode on the Jade Spring Peak, he was called out by the 12th uncle. It turned out that the underworld sect had sent a Violet Palace Realm Elder to invite him to the underworld sect to reward him. Wang Daoyuan did not understand. In the past, the underworld sect would send someone to deliver the rewards. Why was it so troublesome this time? However, since the underworld sect had sent a Violet Palace Realm cultivator to invite him, he could not refuse. In any case, he was going to the underworld sect to receive the rewards, not to go to the guillotine. There was no harm in going. After walking out of the cave abode, he followed the 12th uncle Wang Shui into the hall. The 5th uncle was chatting with the Violet Palace Realm cultivator of the underworld sect. After Wang Daoyuan entered, the Violet Palace Realm cultivator hurriedly stood up and cupped his hands. "Greetings, Steward Wang." Wang Daoyuan did not dare to be arrogant and returned the greeting. "Greetings, Elder." The Violet Palace Realm cultivator smiled. "Congratulations, Steward Wang. You have made a great contribution in Wuqing Pass. The Myriad Spirit Sect and the Song Nation have reached an agreement. The Nether Sea Patriarch has returned with a large amount of resources. The sect master has decided to reward you greatly. During this battle, you refined the flying warship and healed the injured cultivators. You have made a great contribution. Thus, the sect master sent me to invite you to the sect to personally reward you. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.